Mishnah Walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the Mishnah Walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah Walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light. Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The old Torah treasure to share. On the Mishnah Walk, we're all aware. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah Walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way. On the Mishnah Walk, every single day. Mishnah Walk, every single day. The Mishnah Walk, every single day. Mishnah Walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah Walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah Walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the Mishnah Walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah Walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light. Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The old Torah treasure to share. On the Mishnah Walk, we're all aware. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah Walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way. On the Mishnah Walk, every single day. Mishnah Walk, every single day. The Mishnah Walk, every single day. Mishnah Walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah Walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah Walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the Mishnah Walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah Walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light. Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The old Torah treasure to share. On the Mishnah Walk, we're all aware. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, every step a where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah Walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way. On the Mishnah Walk, every single day. Mishnah Walk, every single day. The Mishnah Walk, every single day. Mishnah Walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the Mishnah Walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah Walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the Mishnah Walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah Walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light, Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The Torah treasure to share, on the Mishnah walk, we're all aware. A Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way, on the Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, every single day. The Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth, on the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light, Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The Torah treasure to share, on the Mishnah walk, we're all aware. A Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way, on the Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, every single day. The Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth, on the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light, Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The Torah treasure to share, on the Mishnah walk, we're all aware. A Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. From tractate to tractate we roam, unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages we find our way, on the Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, every single day. The Mishnah walk, every single day. Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. The Mishnah walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth, on the Mishnah walk, with hearts like roots. The Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned, on the Mishnah walk, wisdom is yearned. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light, Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The Torah treasure to share, on the Mishnah walk, we're all aware. A Mishnah walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the mission walk, wisdom is yours. From tractate to tractate, we roam. Unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages, we find our way. On the mission walk, every single day. Mission walk, every single day. The mission walk, every single day. Mission walk, a journey of the soul. We'll mission walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the mission walk, wisdom is yours. The mission walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the mission walk, with hearts like roots. We'll mission walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the mission walk, wisdom is yours. Rabbi Akiva's teachings are guiding light. Raki Avot's wisdom shining bright. The oral Torah, treasure to share. On the mission walk, we're all aware. A mission walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the mission walk, wisdom is yours. From tractate to tractate, we roam. Unpacking the meaning, making it our home. In the words of the sages, we find our way. On the mission walk, every single day. Mission walk, every single day. The mission walk, every single day. Mission walk, a journey of the soul. We'll mission walk, a road of discovery, where ancient texts meet the heart's inquiry. Every step a lesson learned. On the mission walk, wisdom is yours. The mission walk, a journey of the soul, where the love of learning makes us whole. May every step bring us closer to the truth. On the mission walk, with hearts like roots.
Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.
All right, let's see. I think Rabbi is with us. I hear him. I heard something. Well, everybody is celebrating their mothers today. And I want to say happy Mother's Day to everyone. And how is Mother's Day at your place in Tennessee, is it? Or
Yep.
did you fall off a mountain or anything? Big earthquake?
Yep, had a big earthquake yesterday morning.
Are you
but
serious?
Did
Yeah,
you feel it? Yeah,
I
Wow.
did.
that was
did.
fun, huh?
Yeah, shook
Ooh,
the
a big
house,
cup
but that
of
was
air.
about it.
That is scary.
Wow. You guys look great. Nice and shiny. Sunlight. We all look so bright. Let's not mislead anybody here with that high symbol. It looks magical. All right. Let's get going. Are you guys ready?
Oh, as ready as I'm gonna be, picking up from a week ago or 2 weeks ago. All right.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Okay.
You guys see it?
Make sure. Okay, we're recording and all the tubes are connected. So yes,
The
Let's see.
intertubes are connected.
the interwebs.
Yes. You can see my screen, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, whoever would like to, whoever is most humble and willing to be put on the spot, that is the
Wow.
person who's going to read.
Yahi.
That means you're kind of blanked if you do, blanked if you don't. So somebody's going to read.
Okay. Yehi Retzon Milfaneka.
I can't emphasize it enough. You have to have friction when you pronounce the chaf when there's no dot inside of it.
I
Okay.
felt friction in my toes, but you're right. It may not have come across all the way through.
Also, the
lips.
speakers, it is possible the speakers didn't pick it up. All right,
Milfanecha.
let's start from the beginning. But just it's better until you're somewhat fluent, it's better to overemphasize the chaf than to not do it. It's really often the case with any sound that's not native to our mother tongue to
Mhm.
overemphasize it until it's just like second nature. All right. Bonat Hill. Let's begin.
Yehi Ratzon Milfanecha Adonai Elohai.
Let's translate it. Heather, you want to translate? Okay, I'll go ahead and try.
Okay, go ahead.
No, ladies first. I mean, mothers
Uh,
first.
May it be favorable before you, Adonai, our God.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Victor. Tamshich ad kan. Continue unto this point. Semicolon.
Shelo Akashel Bidvar Halacha.
Beautiful. Heather, bechavod.
That I may not stumble in a matter of halacha or Jewish law.
All right, Victor. Tamshich. Continue.
Shelo Almer.
Od pam.
Say again. I'm sorry.
Od pam means once more, once again.
Omar
There you go.
Al Tameh Tahor Wa'al Tahor Tameh.
Yan, excellent. All right, bechavod, Heather.
That I not say regarding that which is impure, that it is pure, and regarding that which is pure, that it is impure.
Yan. Victor, bechavod. Go right ahead.
Wa'al Mutar Asur Wa'al Asur Mutar.
Yan.
And regarding that which is permitted, that it is forbidden, and regarding that which is forbidden, that it is permitted.
Wa'al Akashel Bidvar Halacha.
That I shall not stumble in a matter of halacha or Jewish law.
Yan.
Wa'yismach Machu.
Perfect. Let's say it one more time.
Wa'yismachu be where are we at? Okay. Be drawing a blank, sorry.
Syllable by syllable. Het.
Kavre.
All right, so
Kavre?
het.
Mhm.
Unless het is at the unless het
Kavre.
is the last letter in a syllable, which mostly only happens at the very end of a word. Unless it's in that location, it's better to pronounce it as an H, just a regular H like in English, than like a K sound.
Havarai.
Perfect. Let's say that one more time.
Havarai. Wais Mahu be Havarai.
And let's say that one more time, because if we just say Mahu, it means erase. And you don't want to say like erase
That
me.
doesn't sound good.
So let's do that one more time.
Waismachu be Havarai.
Beautiful.
Wa'al Ikashalu
Perfect.
Havarai Bidvar Halacha
And there's our classic typo. So it should be on the left-hand side.
Waismat.
Let's say it one more time
Wais.
slowly. Say it slowly, syllable by syllable. First syllable,
Wa
second syllable,
Wa'e Waish
all right? But the dot should be on the left side. So this is a
Wais
what s, what s, what s.
Wa'es Wa'es Mat
Mah.
Mach
There you go. What esmah.
Waismach Waismach Bahem.
Metsuyan. All right, Heather, tur shalach, your turn.
And they shall rejoice with me, my friends, and that they may not stumble in a matter of halacha or Jewish law, and I shall rejoice with them.
Amen. Ken yehir asan. Beautiful. We are on, excuse me, at 259, I believe.
That is correct.
Yofi. Bechavod, ya achti. Yalla. Bechavod.
Not to make a Hebrew servant perform rigorous work, as Leviticus chapter 25, verse 43 states, do not rule over him with rigor.
Mi haba batur. Who's next? Mi haba batur. I know I was told not to say who's next, but we're still practicing Hebrew.
Oh no, that's good.
Mi haba
Tur,
batur.
my turn. Tur Shali.
Yofi.
260. Not to allow a Gentile who purchased a Hebrew servant to make him work rigorously. As Leviticus 25:53 states, he shall not rule over him with rigor.
Okay. And ask, who's next?
Tur Shalach.
Okay,
No.
that is an expression. That's your turn, but you want to say mi haba. Who's next?
Mi haba.
Ani haba. Not to sell a Hebrew maidservant to another person, as Exodus chapter 21, verse 8 states, he shall have no power to sell her.
Okay,
Mi
go ahead
haba.
and ask. Go ahead, Yefet. If you want to be next, you'll say ani haba. I am next.
Ani haba. Not to withhold from a Hebrew maidservant who has been designated as a bride living expenses, clothing, or conjugal right, as Exodus 21:10 states, he may not diminish her living expenses, clothing, or conjugal rights. The above applies also to other wives.
All right, this is a classic example of qal wa homer, which is if this is true for one that you would not think that,
Much more so.
or some may think it may not apply, then yeah, all the more so if you're required by direct commandment in the Torah to provide these for a person who historically would be considered lesser, then all the more so should you do for your normal regular wife, right? And that principle applies to many mitzvot, to many commandments. All right, go ahead and ask who's next.
Or I'm sorry, Mihaba.
Beautiful.
Ani haba. Not to sell a yafat to'ar.
All right, to'ar, and that is a beautiful, a female of comely form, like a woman of beautiful form. And this word there are more than one word in Hebrew for beautiful. This word is not an abstract. It could not be more clear that it's talking about physical, aesthetic, baseline, materialistic attractiveness. There's she could also be beautiful as a person, certainly, but the word to'ar makes the emphasis really on her form, and there's a reason for that. We're not going to get too much into it, but it's kind of like divorce, that it is a commandment that's intended to regulate something that is considered inevitable in human society. So,
Not
go
to not to sell a yafat to'ar as a maidservant, as Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 14 states, do not sell her.
Who's next in line?
Mihaba,
Mihaba Bator. Mihaba Bator. Now we're going to add Bator. Who's next
Mihaba
up?
Batur.
And then you can say Tor Shali, my turn.
Dur Sheli.
Bechavod. And when you say Yafat To'ar, then translate it. A woman of beautiful form.
Not to force a Yafat To'or.
To'ar. To'ar.
To'ar.
Yeah, accent that first syllable. And let's do it
Not
one more
to
time.
force a Yafat To'ar to a beautiful woman.
A woman
to
of beautiful form.
A woman of beautiful form to serve as a maidservant, as Deuteronomy continues, do not rule over her. Ani haba batur.
You want to do the next one?
Mi haba batur.
Okay, you saved yourself.
I did.
I saw that smile. Go ahead.
Tur shali. Not to covet, as Exodus chapter 20, verse 14 states, do not be envious of your neighbor's wife. Mi haba batur.
יפה. טוב,
Dur
אני
Sheli.
הבא בתור. יפה, בכבוד, go right ahead. בכבוד.
Did you skip it or no?
אני לא יודע. No, she read that.
Okay. Not to desire, as Deuteronomy 5:18 states, do not desire your neighbor's house.
And this is not just a standard word for desire. There are multiple words. But a few of those expressions are more common than others. This is usually kind of like that previous word to'ar, which is very physical, like it's pretty unequivocal. So also this usually refers to not necessarily a ideological desire or like a, what do you call it, a stoic want. Usually this is either physical or very emotional. And there's even a theory that the root word of this word is the root of God's name in Hebrew, the most sacred name. It's not the mainstream opinion, but there is an academic opinion that the name of God is related to this root word because the third person masculine form sounds very similar to the name of God. And in fact, in Arabic, it's Yahweh, which means he shall love, or he is like the loving one. In Arabic, it's more broad, this word for like a longing or a being passionate for someone. But in Hebrew, it's usually more physical.
I think that's how you pronounce it in Cherokee as well.
You're joking or serious?
No, serious.
Really?
Yeah. They that's how they say his name. Yahweh.
You mean in their native language?
Like if you listen to them singing to the Great Spirit, that's how they refer to him.
That's so interesting. I wonder what that
It is
means.
interesting.
I wonder if that has like an
know.
underlying.
I'm sure it doesn't have anything to do with their agricultural feasts and you know, single spirit, all that stuff. I don't know.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Miswah haba'a. Next commandment, Miswah haba'a.
Am I up, Tor Sheli?
Bekef, happily, bekef, bechavod.
267, for a worker who is harvesting crops, not to eat from the unpicked produce before he has finished work, as Deuteronomy 23:26 states, do not lift a sickle.
Mitzvah haba'ah. Next commandment. Mitzvah haba'ah.
Mitzvah haba'ah.
For a worker not to take more than what he eats from the produce he harvests, as Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 25 states, do not put any into your receptacles.
And this is talking about while he's harvesting. It doesn't mean after he harvests it, he can't take more if it's given to him, distinctly. This is talking about the idea of don't withhold the mouth of an ox, while it's
Yeah.
eating. While it's plowing. So this is
So
talking
he can
about
eat while he's working, he just can't put it in his pocket.
exactly. It's not saying outside of that context he can't take more. All right. Mitzvah haba'ah. Mi haba bator. Mi haba bator.
I don't know who read that.
Well, ani haba bator. Not to ignore a lost object, as Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 3 states, you may not ignore it. And this goes without saying if it's clearly a lost object. If it's something that in your area is frequently, typically hefker, ownerless, in the sense that people just abandoned it. And that's a common thing, like maybe a pin somewhere, something that a person is not going to really worry about. And you can be pretty sure that they didn't, they relinquished their ownership of it. You don't have to worry about it. If in your area it's a type of object that even if a person lost it, they're not likely to immediately relinquish their connection to it, but they will hope that it will be returned. That's the sort of objects it's talking about. Right? So like if you find an iPhone, of course, a wallet, things like that. Right? Mitzvah haba'ah. Mi haba bator. Oh, haba'ah. Or
Urshali,
go right ahead, Habibi.
270. Not to leave an animal fallen under its load on the road, as Deuteronomy 22:4 states, you may not watch your neighbor's donkey. Mi haba batur.
Ani haba'ah batur. Not to falsify measurements, as Leviticus chapter 19, verse 35 states, do not act deceitfully in judgment. According to the oral tradition, we have learned that this verse prohibits acting deceitfully regarding measurements. Shali mi hatur.
Let's say that one more time.
Shali mi hatur.
What are you trying to say?
Whose turn is it?
Okay. Shel mi hator.
Okay, one word. Shal mi hatur.
Well, it is 3 words. It was just the order was off, and I really wasn't sure what you were saying.
Oh, I thought I
But
said.
those were. Go ahead.
Oh, I haven't. I see what I did.
Yeah, you said all the right
hadn't-
words. It was just the order was. That's good. Excellent. Let's say it one more time.
Shal mi hatur.
Perfect. Yeah, the syntax in Hebrew is very different from English, and that's one of the most difficult things about it, right? So when we say it, shel mi hatur, we're literally saying of whom is the turn, and of course the word of and of whom is the turn, and the word not of, but the word is also just inferred. It's not literally there. So really it's difficult to learn Hebrew just from textbooks by yourself. It's that's the advantage of practicing, because in any language we're going to make mistakes, but if we're just doing it from a textbook, considering all the things you just have to infer, there's not literally a word for it, and the word order is completely different from English. Oh my gosh. You just have to get used to using it for it to sound natural. All right, let's do it one more time, and then hopefully some bird out there will answer.
Shal mi hatur.
We're waiting for that bird to answer.
Ani batur?
Yeah, I'm in line.
Batur?
Ani betur, I'm in line. So you can say now, tur sheli, my turn, tur sheli.
Tur sheli. 271, not to falsify measurements, as Leviticus 19:35 states, do not act deceitfully in judgment. According to the oral tradition, we have learned that this verse prohibits acting deceitfully regarding measurements.
No, we have one more.
Okay. Miha ba batur.
Ani haba'a batur. Not to possess two sets of weights and measures, as Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 13 states, you may not have in your home.
Right. That concludes the reading of the short, concise summaries, 13 every week of the 613 Misweth. Now we're moving on to proactive commandment number 43, and a little bit more expounded upon summaries of the commandments, which you can find in the Book of Commandments by Maimonides, called Sefer HaMisweth, the Book of the Commandments. Proactive commandment number 43. That is, that he commanded to offer a sacrifice on all 7 days of Pesach, Passover, in addition to the daily offerings. That's why all 7 days of Passover have an additional daily prayer, a formal daily prayer, because our formal daily prayers, the standing prayers, also known as the Amidah, they, though not explicitly commanded by God, are based upon an explicit commandment by God, and they are to correspond to the direct command of God regarding offerings in the temple. And in a way, it's kind of a testimony to how the ancient sages of Israel understood that those offerings, those sacrifices that God explicitly commanded, are inherently to be done in a state of surrender and humility before God, such that these prayers correspond to them, i.e., you should not be doing those sacrifices. They're not intended to be done without being tied to a prayerful heart, a humble and contrite heart. So that's really kind of tied in with it. And we find explicit in the text of the Torah that when you are making a sin offering, you must confess your sins, right? So although it's not explicitly commanded to do these daily prayers, but they are inherently tied to an explicit commandment of God. And so Passover, that's why you have an extra daily prayer in addition to what was regularly done, because of the additional offering made on all 7 days of Passover. And that is may he be exalted, saying, 7 days shall you offer a fire offering to the eternal. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 36. For more information, see Parashat Emor. That's I believe this week's Torah portion. Mishneh Torah, you can find it elaborated upon in more detail in the Mishneh Torah, the complete code of Jewish law, in the book of daily offerings and additional offerings, chapter 7. Okay. Anybody have any questions about any of the topics touched on in the reading of the 613 Misweth, what are known as the Taryag HaMisweth?
I wish I had time to jot them down as we scurried on to the next one, because there was a few that I thought would be good to expound on, but did not have time.
When you hit your table and video conference, instead of the camera bouncing, what you see is the person bouncing.
Is that right?
It's kind of funny. Yeah. I'm at a new
Okay.
location and this table is not quite as firm as what I'm used to. All right. So I can give a little recap about some of the topics we dealt with: weights and measures, and we also dealt with marital obligations derived from a Israelite who married a maidservant. And we learned from that if these are divine commands regarding a maidservant, his duties toward her, then all the more so a regular wife. And we also learned some of the mitzvot regarding servitude in the context of the Torah, right? And we also learned some of the mitzvot regarding the Yafat To'ar. And who can remind us what Yafat To'ar refers to?
A woman of beautiful appearance, which is curious to me. Is it so that she's not taken advantage of, or I'm trying to understand why she was kind of held back, if you will, from being sold or whatever it
Yeah.
was saying.
So it is so that she's not going to just be taken advantage of. And I know from a privileged modern Western perspective, that sounds like maybe a cop out or ridiculous, but that's the privilege of someone looking at ancient texts and realities that have existed as establishments in humanity from time immemorial and anachronistically applying realities that only have existed for the last few hundred years. Thank God they've existed, but they've only existed for the last few hundred years and still don't exist in many countries around the world. And holding regular people 3,000-4,000 years ago up to standards that truly were simply unfeasible and not the reality on the ground. That is not intellectually honest. That's not morally superior or more ethical to do something like that, to apply such a standard to people who would not be able to live up to a standard that the person in the 21st century is imposing on them. So what those laws are essentially of the same nature as the laws regarding divorce. The Almighty permitted divorce. He did not command divorce, but he permitted it, knowing in his wisdom and in his Torah, which is a Torah, a guidance of reason and realism, knowing that people are going to be in situations where if they don't divorce, something worse is likely to happen, something much worse. So in a similar vein, that's an allowance, and because it's an inevitable reality, therefore regulation is given for it. So also for servitude, because throughout the span of human history, it's an inevitable reality, and perhaps, God forbid, but it's possible that it could even return. I mean, it still exists in certain countries. When you don't have a society, a civilization that has advanced enough to where it can create social safety nets to ensure that people will be taken care of, and even when they're in extreme debt, when you have social safety nets that provide alternatives, then you don't have to worry about it. But that's not the privilege of the majority of, it's not been the privilege of pretty much any of humanity, any societies historically. That doesn't mean we shouldn't aim for something better. But when the reality on the ground is you do not have those social safety nets, you do not have advanced governments, which require centuries and centuries to develop, if not thousands of years, then servitude is a very practical social necessity. That doesn't mean that chattel slavery of the type that we had notoriously in the US, not exclusively in the US, obviously, but notoriously is known to have been in the US. That's not to say that that is inevitable. That's not inevitable. There are other ways to have servitude, and it doesn't take much research to find out that there are different types of servitude. The Torah does not endorse chattel slavery of the type that we had in the United States, but servitude, slavery for lack of a better word, and really the term slavery shouldn't be used because there are better words. Servitude is a better word from the word service, just like the Hebrew word that sometimes gets translated as slave does not actually mean slave. It means servitude or a servant, from the same root word as working. Slave really should not be used because of all the connotations that come with it that simply do not apply to the biblical commands. If you read those commands, it's obvious that it doesn't apply. You can't just do with them whatever you want.
A servant would be someone who needs the help or is requested to have help with
Servant is a more broad term, right?
you know,
It's much more broad, and it
it's
encompasses
not
even,
being forced into it, maybe except by a legal decision, uh, being in debt, not paying your debt, maybe.
I'm trying to remember what I was going to say.
Sorry.
So the Hebrew word that gets translated sometimes as slave is the same exact word that also is used for somebody who completely voluntarily enters into a contractual type of servitude, right? So there are different types of servitude in the Torah, but my point is that the same Hebrew word is used for both types. So, and in neither of those types is there permission to physically abuse the servant. But one of those types is not it's not exclusively voluntary. There are types of servitude in the Torah that are involuntary, but even those involuntary ones in the Torah do have an element of volition. They do have an element of free will, and that is that, let's say, for example, we conquered a people who are warring with us. They're firing rockets on us indiscriminately. And we've given them many offers of peace. We've given them every opportunity to stop, and they don't stop. It is our moral duty to the innocent civilians among us to conquer those people. It is a moral duty. It is not ethical to just allow yourself and your wives and your children and the innocent among you to be slaughtered. That is not virtuous. Uh, that is not humanistic. That's sadistic and masochistic. It's disgusting. It's sadistic toward others when you're just allowing them to be slaughtered indiscriminately, and it's masochistic if you think that that's something that you want for yourself as well. It's just absurd and a mockery of progressivism. So in such cases, you have a moral and ethical duty, even by mainstream modern standards, to take over that location if those people are absolutely consistently rejecting peace, right? And to apply a double standard to the Jewish people, the people of Israel, is simply anti-Semitism, plain and simple. It's Jew hatred. Jew hatred in the guise of modern progressivism. It's BS, to be frank. It's complete BS. So in those cases, you have to take over them. Of course, they're not going to want to be taken over. Let's say, as is the case currently, that everybody's refusing. Well, I don't know, maybe there's now some exceptions, but for the last 2.5 years, nobody's been willing to take them in as refugees because they like using them as a pawn to justify their Jew hatred. Justify in quotes. So let's say you're in this situation. These are real situations. We can't just lay back, roll over on our backs and give our necks to the barbarians who want to slaughter us. If nobody's taking them as refugees, they're not making peace. What is our option? You don't have any other options. You have to conquer them against their will. Do you think they're going to be peaceful people walking in your streets? Of course not. You need to take over them and, for lack of a better word, enslave them. You have to, okay? That doesn't mean you should impose on them chattel slavery in the sense that you can just abuse them and get away with that. It should be legally enforced that anybody who physically abuses them will themselves also suffer a penalty. However, if they are unwilling to become servants, then you can sell them into servitude to some other people. And we are not responsible for the laws and the way that other nations will treat them. It is in their interest to stay with us, but we don't force them to do that. If they prefer to stay with us rather than to be sold to another country or to other people in other countries, then there's a condition. The people of Israel are not allowed to maintain non-Israelite slaves. There is no such thing as non-Israelite slaves in the land of Israel. It does not exist. There is an Eved Ivri, a Hebrew servant, and a convert to the people of Israel cannot be an Eved Ivri. a convert, a full, an individual who's not of Jewish heritage or background, who voluntarily joins the people of Israel, such as many of ourselves, myself included, is not able to be an Eved Ivri. Okay, I cannot be that. And so we cannot be an Eved Ivri. We cannot be a servant among the people of Israel of this sort. We can only be a hired worker, right? But there's no long term, not even for the temporary 7 years. That doesn't exist for a full convert to the people of Israel, such as ourselves. So only a native-born Israelite can be an Eved Ivri, or someone who did not become a full convert. However, a non-Israelite also cannot be a servant. So what is the second category? It's someone who, whether through war or because they were impoverished and they felt there was no other alternative, voluntarily gave themselves into servitude. Either case, it is someone of non-Israelite heritage who agrees to enter into servitude with the people of Israel, and they have to accept upon themselves not just the 7 laws of Noah. They have to if it's coerced upon them, it's invalid. They have to voluntarily accept upon themselves the entire Torah as it would apply regularly to an Israelite woman. But this is also the case for a male servant of non-Israelite origin. So it's actually a form of voluntary conversion, for lack of a better word, when you become an Israelite servant or a servant of Israel. You have to take upon the commandments of God and be immersed and you have to be circumcised and immersed if you're a male, and immersed if you're a female. And there is no concept in Torah Judaism of Jews enslaving non-Israelites. It does not exist. Simply does not exist. You either are a conquered people or a resident alien who's a non-Israelite who voluntarily chose to enter servitude because you had no other way that you felt you could pay your debts, or you were a people of a barbaric nation that is murderous, and we conquer you, and because we're left no alternative, and what else are we going to do? Allow murderers to walk in our streets? So we conquer you, and if you commit a capital crime, you will be put to death. If you chose to stay among us as a servant and you continue to act murderous, you will be put to death. But if you don't act murderous, you can be a servant among us, but that is on the condition that you accept upon yourselves not just the 7 laws of Noah, but the entire Torah as it would apply to Israel, as it would apply to an Israelite woman, even if you're a male. If you don't want even that, then you have to accept at least the 7 laws of Noah, and there is what's the word? They give them like a probation period to accept more. And you know what? I don't want to talk more about this because it's been such a long time since I reviewed these laws. But these laws are publicly available. You can study them. They're in the Mishneh Torah. And I don't recall specifically if he's given a certain amount of time, as long as he accepts the laws of Noah, to decide to be a servant, or if he at least will accept the 7 laws of Noah, but then he can't be a servant. He can just be a righteous resident of Israel. He's not an Israelite, but also not a servant. And if he will not do either of these, I remember absolutely that he cannot be maintained among the people of Israel. He's either sold into servitude elsewhere or has to leave, but he cannot live among the people of Israel if he's not someone who willingly accepted upon himself the bare minimum that's required to be a resident of the people in the land of Israel. So even though he may not have chosen to be born among a warring nation, but he can choose whether he's going to be with us or he's going to go to some other nation. Right? So this is not similar to the American type of chattel slavery that used to exist here in the US. Yalla. Any questions regarding this before we move on? Okay, in that case, Bu'unamshich. I love seeing it when you guys chuckle.
That we probably could have spent the rest of the time just discussing all of the ways that
We could spend a few months talking about it, but
Yeah.
we really should not without doing a review. It's not wise to go into too much detail about halachot, laws that you haven't seriously studied in a long time. בואו נמשיך. So, because it is Mother's Day, in commemoration of Mother's Day, we will look at a summary of some of the commandments regarding mothers and fathers. Mi haba batur.
Nihaba avatur.
B'chavod neshama.
He prohibited hitting father and mother, and also about this there is no explicit prohibition, but he mentioned the punishment and said, "And if one strikes his father or mother, he will surely die." Exodus chapter 21, verse 15. And we learned that the prohibition about the one who strikes his father in the way that we learned about it about the one who curses his father. And that is since it already has been explained in Commandment 300 that we are prohibited about hitting anyone, his father included. And the language of the Mechilta is if one strikes his father or his mother, etc. We have heard the punishment. From where do we know the prohibition? Hence we learn to say, 40 is he to strike him, he may not add. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verse 3. Behold, these matters are
A fortiori. I believe that means like Kal v'chomer, like all the more so, but I'm not certain.
are a fortiori.
Just a word of advice for people who translate things. If your intended audience is the general public, even the general Jewish public, try to avoid using words that very, very few people know. It's really not like, what is the purpose of a translation if only academics or people who have extensive experience in academia understand it? Like, if that's your only target audience, okay, it makes sense. But otherwise it really doesn't, and it's really a disservice to everybody, and it doesn't look good on you, the translator, if you claim to be translating for the broad public, but you do that. And I see that a lot in Jewish translations. Jews are known for being uber academic. You know, it's not each and every Jew, it's not even most Jews, but we do have a disproportionate amount of academic scholars of all sorts among the Jewish people. It's disproportionate. And I think that's kind of the cause of that. So part of being educated and intellectual means that you know who your audience is. So if you guys ever notice myself using any term that perhaps I'm not aware, but I should be made known, it should become aware to me. If I'm using some term consistently without defining it, please let me know. So I looked it up. That is what it refers to. It's the Latin term that refers to if this, then all the more so that.
And how do you say that in Hebrew? Is it Kal v'chomer or
Yeah, Kal v'chomer.
Kal v'chomer?
Kal v'chomer, and that's with a quf as opposed to a kaf. Yeah. Let's continue.
Yeah.
So behold, these matters are, if all the more so this, then that. If one who is commanded to strike one is exhorted not to strike him, his father or mother, who he is commanded not to strike, is it not the law that he is commanded not to strike him? The one who transgresses this negative commandment, meaning to say he strikes his father or mother volitionally,
that means on purpose,
and draws blood from them, he is liable for strangulation. And the laws of this commandment have already been explained at the end of Sanhedrin. See Parashat Mishpatim, Mishneh Torah, Rebels, chapter 5.
Excellent. Okay. Miswa haba'ah. Mi haba batur. Mr. Victor.
You are muted, Mr. Victor.
Sorry about that. Let's see. Ani haba batur.
Kol hakavod.
That is that
Proactive
he
commandment. Proactive commandment number 210. Sefer HaMitzvot.
that is that he commanded us to honor our father and mother, and that is his, may he be exalted, saying, you shall honor your father and mother, Exodus 20:12. And the regulation of this commandment have already been explained in the Talmud, primarily in Kiddushin, and the language of the Sifra, Kedoshim, section 1 and 10 is, which is honor, giving to eat, giving to drink, bringing in and taking out. See Parashat Yitro, Mishneh Torah, Rebel 6.
Excellent. Miswah haba'ah. Mi haba batur. Slicha. Mi haba'a batur.
Ani haba'a batur. That is that he commanded us to fear our father and mother, and that is that one behave with them according to what is customary towards one whom he fears, such as a king. And he should be with them like one who is afraid of them, and beware of something coming from himself that would be untoward. And that is his, may he be exalted, saying, a man shall fear his father and mother. And the language of the Sifra is, which is fear. He shall not sit in his place, and he shall not speak in front of him, and he shall not contradict his words. And the regulations of this commandment have already been explained in Tractate Kedushim. See Parashat Kedushim, Mishneh Torah, Rebels 6.
All right. So we see, and of course, this is just a summary of the concept, but we see already that the concept of honoring one's father and mother in the context of classical Torah observance, classical Torah Judaism, is way more serious than it is even in the broader evangelical world, where you certainly hear people refer to honoring their father and mother, but in practice you see that it is just way, way less of a tangible reality in everyday life than is in the way that the people of Israel historically understood it. So you don't sit in your father's seat if he has a certain place he regularly sits. You don't go plop down there, even if he's not there. If obviously if he explicitly said you could sit there, then you could sit there, but you would probably by that time have fomented a mentality or a mindset that you wouldn't really feel very comfortable to sit there, frankly. And to not speak in front of him, it doesn't mean you can't speak at all, but what it means is not to speak in front of him when, to not just bust into the room and start talking like it's some other person in your social circle. But you first give your father and also your mother the opportunity to speak before you just barge in, and not contradicting his words. It doesn't mean you can't disagree. And you would find all of what I'm telling you if you look into the halachot, the expounding on this commandment in the Mishneh Torah. But not contradicting his words doesn't mean you can't disagree with it. But there's a certain way in which you can and a certain way in which you shouldn't. And the difference is in the execution and how you do it. Mr. Victor raised his hand.
I look at this and I see that this has to be done at this foundation level in order to be a part of the Jewish community as far as learning oral Torah and doing what those above you tell you to do. This level of high respect helps keep the order of the community.
Yep, of the entire society. It's a ground up matter. If people are disrespecting their parents, why would we think they're going to respect their teachers? Why would we think they're going to respect their neighbors, some random stranger? It is such a basic thing. It's really mind-blowing how far we've fallen, even in the so-called Bible Belt. And yeah, relative to the rest of the U.S., it's pretty devout. But even in the Bible Belt, we have fallen so far from the tree. It's unbelievable. It doesn't make us look good.
When I was very young, I went to a Catholic school because my parents didn't want me in public school, so we went to a Catholic private school, if you will, and I tell you, it was understood that if I messed up, someone's going to take care of me and punish me without even needing to ask my parents. And it was proper, in my opinion. They should have done that. But we have lost that. We don't have the ability
Of course, there are
of
limits, but yeah,
sure.
if you have no repercussion for misbehavior, no repercussions that the child would actually be fearful of,
Right.
then you're going to have chaos. It's simple,
Mhm.
common sense. That doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't have limits, but also to have zero, structure is ridiculous. Then there are no limits in society, and the consequences are far worse. And you don't have to have gone to many different countries to realize that there are still many countries in the world where honoring one's parents is still taken very, very seriously. And when they come over here, it just doesn't look good.
Mm.
We would have so much more respect in the world if we would be respectful to each other, first and foremost. How can we expect to be respected when we don't respect ourselves? And this is also true, not just in the US, but also in the modern state of Israel. I would say it's better than in the US, honoring one's parents. But it's quite clear to me that Israel also has been very influenced by not just the good in the Western society, but also the bad in Western society. But Israel is not simply a Western country. It's kind of a synthesis of East and West simultaneously. And you do still see serious respect of parents in Israel, but it really depends on what sector of the country you're in. Certainly in the Arab sector, and certainly in the ultra Orthodox sector in the Sephardic world, especially in Israel, which is the majority. But among Haredim, I'm not sure it's the majority among Haredim, ultra Orthodox or not. But it's certainly a very major percentage, if not the majority. You do still see serious honoring of parents, but there's certainly room for improvement. But when I'm sheikh. So I think we should also look up, I haven't looked it up already, but it occurred to me to look up also the commandment regarding not cursing one's parents, or the commandment regarding the rebellious son. Let's see. Second. It's based on Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 18 through 20.
And strangulation is on the table, I see.
Not a great thing to just drop in without further commentary. We're about to get some commentary though.
Good.
195. I hope it's correct. Excuse me. Okay. And I'm curious what the previous had. So the previous regarded wine, and also this one regards wine. I'm going to put my computer on pause. Never mind. I'm going to put my audio on pause while I clear my throat, and you guys can go ahead and start reading.
He prohibited us from being gluttonous and drunk with food and drink in the days of youth and under the conditions of the law of the stubborn and rebellious son. That is his saying, you shall not eat with the blood, Leviticus 19:26. And the explanation of this is that a stubborn and rebellious son is included in those things that are liable for a death penalty of the court. And the language of the Torah about it in Deuteronomy 21:21 is that it is punished with stoning. And it has already been explained at the introduction of this essay, Sefer HaMitzvot Shorashim, that anything for which one is liable for excision or a death penalty of the court is a negative commandment, except for the Pesach sacrifice and circumcision, as we explain. If so, since the gluttonous and drunk son, under the specified conditions, is sentenced to stoning, we know that the act is perforce prohibited to him, since the punishment was explicit. Hence, we must search for the prohibition, since Scripture did not punish for something unless it prohibited it. And the language of the Gemara in Sanhedrin 63a is, from where do we know the prohibition of a stubborn and rebellious son? Hence, we learn to say, you shall not eat with the blood, meaning to say, do not eat in an eating that brings about the spilling of blood, and that is the eating of a stubborn and rebellious son, as he is liable for death because of it. And when he eats this bad eating in those not good ways, he has already transgressed the negative commandment, even though he is a general.
Even though this is.
Even though this is a general negative commandment, as we explained in the 9th principle in Sefer HaMitzvot Shorashim 9. For this is not difficult, since the punishment is explicit. We do not concern ourselves with whether the prohibition is bona fide or whether it is from a general negative commandment, and the regulation of this commandment have already been explained in chapter 8 of Sanhedrin. See Parashat Kedoshim, Mishneh Torah Rebel 7.
All right. So, of course, it's natural to think this is an extreme law, but we will find out more about it by clicking right here. You do see already hints at it, though, because it starts off saying in his youth, you can see that here, I believe it says Nar. Yeah, Bena'aruth. And that is not like a little child. It's not a regular full-grown man, but it's not a little child. It's in the teens. And there are all sorts of conditions for it. So let's look at it here, if you guys are okay with that. Heather, would you like to read?
Ken. It is explicitly stated that the wayward and rebellious son described in the Torah should be stoned to death. Now, the Torah does not administer a punishment unless a warning was issued first. Where was the warning issued? In Leviticus chapter 19, verse 26. Do not eat the blood, which can be interpreted to mean, do not partake of food that will lead to the shedding of blood. This refers to the meal eaten by the wayward and rebellious son who is executed only because of the hateful feast of which he partook, as Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 20 states, he is gluttonous and a lush. According to the oral tradition, we learned that this was interpreted to mean that he ate meat and drank wine in a ravenous manner.
And that's a behavior that's going to lead to, invariably, I mean, it's a reality for guys particularly, that teenagers frequently do some of the worst crimes statistically. It's not that they're the only ones, but statistically, young men, especially groups of young men, when they have a culture about them of, revelry and drunken parties, they're usually those that, and this is even in the Middle East, even where they're not allowed to drink wine. It's usually the young ones who are doing most of the terrorist attacks as well. And there's just something about the folly of youth, especially male youth. And when you combine that with the nature of, also, again, think about history. Try to take yourself out of the conveniences and privilege of 21st century Western world. If you are living in a time where poverty and hunger is the norm, and you have a son who's just having a gluttonous meal with drunkenness, that's really a nasty person. And like all of the Torah commandments, you don't just go out and have a vigilante mock trial in the street. You have to give him warnings. You have to bring him before a court. There's an entire list of a process of adjudication. But the men and the youth of Israel, the male youth of Israel, need to know that it's a serious crime to reach such a point, and that there will be consequences. So more than anything, this serves as a very powerful deterrent. And as we may see, I think the Rambam brings it here, but it's pretty widely known in the Jewish world, as discussed in the Talmud. As we will learn, the sages of Israel interpreted this in such a manner that it's not even believed that it was actually carried through, that there was ever even such a case among the people of Israel, which would mean that the commandment served its purpose. And till today, with all of our imperfections among the Jewish people are not exactly known for being a party of drunkards, right? I mean, there are individual Jews who are drunk, but we're not known. It's not one of the negative stereotypes of Jews. Let's continue reading. Go ahead.
With the eating meat with the blood, is that basically indicating the method of slaughter was not with care or concern over the animal's comfort? It was brash, and you could
interpret it. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it looks like they took the animal and its meat with the blood not being taken care of as commanded, and without care of that life.
I think that's a very reasonable interpretation, and it could be part of the plain meaning. But our sages understood it also as a type of eating that's indicative that blood will be spilt as a consequence of it. But I think, though, that those go hand in hand. If you are a character or of a mindset that you're going to eat in such a inhumane way, like you described, I mean, it's pretty well known that, especially serial killers, they often give indications even before they begin their violent, murderous spree by being known for harming animals, abusing animals.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real thing. Let's continue reading.
Mm-hmm. There are many particulars involved in the meal for which he is liable for eating. All of these are conveyed by the oral tradition. He is not liable for stoning until he steals from his father and buys meat and wine at a cheap price. He must then eat it outside his father's domain, together with a group that are all empty and base. He must eat meat
like I was referring to earlier. A lot of times, it's pretty common that the violent behavior of youth is kind of like a mob mentality. It's a bad culture in general.
He must eat meat that is raw, but not entirely raw, cooked, but not entirely cooked, as is the practice of thieves. He must drink the wine as it is thinned, as the alcoholics drink. He must eat a quantity of meat weighing 50 denarim in one sitting, and drink half a log of this wine at one time.
Let's hold on for a second. I know this will seem like extremely specific, and people will be like, this is all just made up. The Torah didn't say this. Nobody's saying that the Torah explicitly said any of this. Nobody says that. What the Torah says is that God commanded us to enforce his commandments, and he gave that authority to the great Sanhedrin. And if you actually have a functioning society which actually takes his commandments seriously, then the court must give definition to the commandments, and that is the responsibility of the court. Otherwise, any little court may say, this is a rebellious son, let's kill him, and it could be easily abused. Maybe he doesn't like the son of his neighbor who threatens his position of authority in the community, so he wants to go ahead and get rid of him. So he's going to say, oh, you're a rebellious son. No, you have to give definition to it in order to have a functioning society. Is no different from the prohibition against murder. It must be expounded upon. You have to know, does the prohibition of murder include when I kill someone because I had very good, reasonable cause that he was on his way to murder me or someone else? Of course not. Of course it doesn't. But sometimes there are areas that could be debatable. And this is certainly one. I mean, if you look in the text of the Torah, the very wording that would beg the question, does the Torah actually even say all these details? shows the need for these details because it's so broad and vague, right? So, let's continue.
If he stole from his father and partook of such a meal inside his father's domain, or stole from others and partook of this hateful meal in his father's domain or in another's domain, he is not liable. If the meal involves a mitzvah, even the mitzvah,
yeah, a commandment.
even the mitzvah of rabbinic origin, or the meal involves a transgression, even a transgression of rabbinic origin, he is not liable. This may be inferred from the phrase, he does not heed our voice. That is, through eating this meal, he violates only his parents' command. This excludes one who, through this meal, violates the words of the Torah or who partakes of it for the sake of a mitzvah. What is implied? If he partook of such a hateful meal together with a wicked company for the sake of a mitzvah, or he partook of the second tithe in Jerusalem, even if they eat a meal comforting the bereaved, which is a mitzvah of rabbinic origin, he is not liable. Similarly, if he ate meat from animals that were not ritually slaughtered, or which were treif, teeming animals or crawling animals, and even if he ate on a communal fast day, a transgression of rabbinic origin, he is not liable for execution.
All right, so we may or may not agree with everything written here. You're not required to. We're just required
Very
to.
lenient.
We're just required to respect the, and respect doesn't have to mean agree, but we respect and recognize that this is these are the parameters giving definition to the commandment given in the Torah. Giving definition meaning giving limits to it so that you don't have rebellious courts or corrupt politicians among the people of Israel just executing the sons of opponents that they don't like, for example. Or even aside from that, just being overly rash and overly quick to judgment. And of course, this goes on. It gives more and more detail. Let's see. Let's have Heather read this bit. This is Halacha number 5, chapter 7, regarding Torah commandment of Ben Sorer More.
For this transgression, the Torah does not punish a child who has not come to age where he is responsible for the observance of mitzvot. Similarly, a man who is matured and is independent is not stoned to death because he ate and drank such a hateful meal. What is implied? According to the oral tradition, we learned that this law concerns a youth of 13 between the time he grew 2 pubic hairs and the time at which his entire male organ is surrounded by pubic hair.
Sorry.
After the entire male organ is surrounded by pubic hair, he is considered as independent and is not executed by stoning.
I'm so sorry. Well, now you know. Okay. Mr. Victor, would you like to read the next one? If you're dealing with the death penalty, if you're dealing with the death penalty, you do need to be specific. And this shows the compassion of the sages of Israel. They were not just looking for an opportunity to be, to kill people, as is often the way Jews are portrayed in certain religious groups till today. And it's quite the opposite. They took every opportunity to limit the harshness that could hypothetically be carried out and quote unquote justifiable. To the contrary, right? They were very compassionate.
Yes, when the rabbis went in and defined what the Torah was stating, they were very, I don't know if lenient's the right word, but they didn't allow
considerate. Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they didn't allow any harsh it to turn into a harsh
system.
treatment.
They're very compassionate.
I was going to say the compassion is with the rabbis.
Definitely, there are. I can only think of one off the top of my head. One thing which I'm not going to talk about right now, but I can only recall one halakha that I have read that really like kind of disturbed me. And I've seen explanations for it, which I think may be correct, that have put my mind at ease. But out of hundreds of laws, to find only one that, really kind of irked me. And we're talking about rabbinic explanations here. I don't think that's very bad, considering, and I mean that in a facetious sense. It's not too bad, considering that we're dealing with laws from millennia ago, right? And it's always easy to hold up a unfair and unjust magnifying glass from the 21st century as we examine how people were dealing with reality at hand thousands of years ago. Right? That's what's the term? There's an English term for it. That's really a holier than thou approach. That's not that religious Christians do not have a monopoly on. Right? There's certainly plenty of holier than thou secular humanists who do a lot of injustice in the name of so-called justice, in their arrogance. And this is just another such example. بخبض.
The entire period for
Yes, sir.
which a wayward and rebellious son is liable is only 3 months from the time he manifests signs of physical maturity, for it is possible that his wife will conceive and her fetus will be recognizable within 3 months. This is derived from Deuteronomy 21:18. If a person will have a wayward and rebellious son, a son, and not a wayward and rebellious father. I'm lost.
Let me look at the Hebrew. فديما شل بنصر مرة أنا ألا شل شو حظ شيء ما أحر شيء يوبي شتى صعرت في شار شتى تعبر إشتاء وهي عبارة نكور بشل شو حظ شيء وأنا أمر okay the entire Islam so his wife is referring, so once he's married, right. So once he's married and he has a kid, well, I guess really it's assuming he's married. Hypothetically, this could be true even if he's not married. But once he's a father, the point is that once he's a father, he cannot be a rebellious son. He comes out of that category. It's saying that once he has a son, he is exempt. Right? It's not saying he's permitted to be a drunken, gluttonous, wild man, but he's exempt from the death penalty.
And that would include even if his son hasn't been born yet?
It looks like it. Signs.
Once the mother has the appearance of being pregnant.
I think what it's saying by recognizable, let me see here. Nikor. I think what it's saying is that maybe what it's saying, I'm not certain, is that there may be some trait in the baby, assuming the baby, if it comes out, that already at 3 months, excuse me, already at 3 months, there may be some recognition that maybe he's the father. Now, I could be wrong about that. All right, so I want to look at one other thing. There are more details. You guys now know where to find it. I want that we will look at the laws regarding honoring parents. Let's go to chapter 6. Anyway. There we go. Yay. I don't know why it didn't give me to the top of the page. All right. I want to stop sharing and I will send you this link and I want you to pull it up, or you could just give everybody a break because I really need just a short little break. We'll be right back, folks. Here. So it's your call if you want to. I sent you a link on WhatsApp. You guys
Okay.
can continue with just make sure you're sharing your screen. You can continue reading. It should be chapter 6 of the same book, and I will be back in a jiffy. Yalla bye.
Are you pulling it up, Victor?
Oh, I just posted the link into the chats.
Okay.
I have not opened it yet. If you have it open, you can start.
I don't have it open yet.
Okay. All right. Let me
Loading.
share the screen. Can you see that all right?
Yes. And I believe it is my turn.
Ah,
Honoring one's father and mother is a positive commandment of great importance, as is fearing one's father and mother. The Torah equates the honor and fear of one's parents with the honor and fear of God himself. As Exodus chapter 20, verse 12 states, honor your father and your mother, and Proverbs chapter 3, verse 9 states, honor God from your wealth. Similarly, with regard to one's father and mother, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 3 states, a person must father. And Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 13 states, and you shall fear God, your Lord. Just as he commands us to honor and fear his great name, so too he commands us to honor and fear our parents.
okay. Mitzvah 2 or section 2. I'm not sure what you would call it. A person who curses his father or mother is executed by stoning, and a person who blasphemes God is executed by stoning. Thus, the punishment for the two is equated. Father is mentioned before a mother with regard to honor, and a mother is mentioned before a father with regard to fear, to teach that they are both equal in regard to fear and honor.
What is meant by fear and what is meant by honor? Fear is expressed by not standing in his place, not sitting in his place, not contradicting his words, nor offering an opinion that outweighs his. He should not call him by name, neither during his lifetime or after his death. Instead, he should say, my father and my master. If his father or his teacher had the same name as others, he should call those other people by a different name. It appears to me that one should be careful only with regard to this matter, with regard to a name that is unusual, which is not used frequently by people. With regards to the names which people are generally called by contrast, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, and the like, one can call others by that name in any language and at any time outside his father's presence without thinking anything of the matter. What is them? One should bring them food and drink, clothe them and cover them.
What is meant? Sorry.
I thought I read that. What is meant by honoring them? One should bring them food and drink, clothe them and cover them from their resources. If a father does not have financial resources and a son does, the son is compelled to sustain his father and his mother according to his capacity. He should bring him out and bring him home and serve him in all the ways one serves a teacher. Similarly, he should stand before him as one stands before a teacher.
When a father was the student of his son, the father need not stand in the presence of the son. The son, by contrast, must stand before his father, even if he is the student. A son is obligated to honor his father in other matters when he is carrying out his business and saying to his concern. What is implied if a person went to a place because of his father's words, he should not say, hurry and free me of my own account, or let me go on my own account. Instead, hurry and free me because of my father, let me go because of my father. Similar laws apply in all analogous situations. He should always include in his words statements that indicate that he is concerned with his father's honor and that he fears him.
A son is obligated to honor his father even after his death. What is implied? If he repeats a teaching in his father's name, he should not say, "This is what my father said." Instead, he should say, "This is what my father and teacher, may I atonement for him, said." When does this above apply? Within 12 months of his passing. After 12 months, he says to him, "May he be remembered for the life of the world to come."
Both a man and a woman are obligated to honor and fear their parents. It is only that the man has the capacity to do this and a woman is subject to another's influence. Therefore, if she is divorced or widowed, they are both equal.
To what degree does the mitzvah of honoring one's father and mother extend?
Even if one's parent takes his purse of gold and throws it into the sea in his presence, he should not embarrass them, shout, or vent anger at them. Instead, he should accept the Torah's decree and remain silent. To what degree does the mitzvah, the commandment of fearing one's parents, extend? Even if one was wearing fine garments and sitting at the head of the community, if one's father or mother came, ripped the clothes, struck them on the head, and spat in his face, he should not embarrass them. Instead, he should remain silent and fear the King of Kings, who commanded to conduct himself in this manner. Were a mortal king to decree something which would cause him even more suffering, he would not be able to move a limb in protest. Certainly, this applies when the command emanates from he who spoke and caused the world to come into existence, as he desired it.
Shall I stop sharing?
If you like.
That was number 7, 6, 7.
Do you guys have any questions up to this point of anything that you read? Are you all feeling miserable for how much you failed at honoring your parents?
Pretty much. I think I'm ready for a stoning and a strangling.
I keep getting glimpses of Heather's cyborg identity. Every now and then she like flickers like a old TV screen when the channel goes out, and I always knew she wasn't real because I've never actually met her. She's just like a projection of the matrix of the Torah, right? The Torah matrix.
She's just a glitch. She's just a glitch in the matrix.
She's the female manifestation of the Shekhinah. Every now and then, what do they say? It's just instead of lizard people, it's the Torah emanation. She's like flickering, like on Star Trek. What do they call it? Beamed. Her presence is being beamed on the on the interwebs. All right, we shouldn't have too much more. I'm going to share my screen and we can continue. Which halacha are you guys at?
We just did 7, so.
Okay.
You passed it. To
We
what
just
degree?
did 7. Yeah, I just did 7. So let's get somebody to read now.
To what degree? That's it.
I already read this.
Oh, that's okay. That's right. I guess.
You didn't hear me reading it? Maybe I was on mute.
No, I heard it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Mi haba batur.
Ani
By the
haba
way,
batur.
It's halacha haba'ah. Next halacha. Halacha haba'ah.
Although these commands have been issued, a person is forbidden to lay a heavy yoke on his sons and be particular about their honoring him to the point it's an obstacle to them. Instead, he should forgo his honor and ignore any affronts. For if a father desires to forgo his honor, he may. Halacha haba'ah.
Halacha haba'ah. Mi haba batur. Who's next in line? Mi haba batur. Halacha haba'ah.
Urshali. But what do you want me to say?
That's good. Let's go.
That was good.
Yeah.
All right. Although these commands, oops, I'm sorry, I'm on my screen. A person who strikes a son who has attained majority should be placed under a ban of ostracism, for he is transgressing the charge, Leviticus 19:14. Do not place a stumbling block in front of the blind.
All right, that's got great practical implications. Think about it. If they considered that a stumbling block even 2,000 years ago, when the culture was dramatically different than today, all the more so is it inappropriate to strike your son nowadays once he's 13 years old. And there are parents who do that kind of a thing. Like, all the more so. And majority means 13.
Of age.
Yeah, in the context of Jewish law, majority is 13, not 18. And this was 2,000 years ago, when they didn't see the culture of, super libertarian type culture where there's really like great freedom, unlike anything that people knew 2,000 years ago. So imagine doing that nowadays. You're setting your child up to hate you. Don't be striking your child, even if they're misbehaving. If need be, you get some other relatives to help you if absolutely necessary. If you can't handle your kid yourself with words when he's 13 years old, then maybe, I mean, I know it hurts to recognize this or to hear it, but if you have to be hitting your 13-year-old son, and even if, you're doing your best now, but there may have been some mistake in the past, you can't change it, but this is the reality at hand now. Don't be hitting your son or your daughter, obviously, when they're 13 years old. If you need help, then that's just the reality. You're going to need somebody to help you without hitting them. If they're so bad that they really do need some kind of physical restraint, again, you're not the person to be doing it. If you have to, go ahead.
Would the court of the people be dealing with the problems of an 11-year-old, or would that be family handled, and then they become 13 and now you're now a man, you're going to go deal with the court. They're going to take matters into their hands.
Definitely. But as long as it's within the house, nobody's going to be going into your house with cameras. So they're still under the domain of the parents, so long as they live with the parents. However, let me ask you this.
It's like the responsibility is now shifted onto your shoulders. You're not going to act like a man. I'm not going to treat you like a child anymore, correcting your behavior.
They're not legally required by the Torah to even sustain their children anymore by that age. It's a rabbinic injunction. I forget until which age. But it's already by the age of 13 and on, if you're providing for your children, which you should be, right? These things depend on the realities in your generation. But by the age of 13, in the modern world, you should be providing for your kid, obviously. And dina de malchuta dina. So the law of the land, even the non-Torah law of the land, so long as that law doesn't require you to violate the Torah, the law of the land is also the law. And of course, you cannot neglect your children. In the modern world, the average 13-year-old will not survive. Reality was different for most of history, but we have to live in the reality at hand.
Yeah, those numbers have to shift way to fit today. So
yeah, but there was something I'm trying to remember what I was gonna say. Oh man, there was something pretty important.
Victor messed it up again. Threw a stumbling block in front of your sentence.
I guess if it's important enough, I would remember it. Just if you don't mind, give me one moment, because I thought something pretty big. I think it's coming. Oh, if a child, let me ask you guys this. Would you consider a child under 13, would you consider him as a parent's responsibility for the behavior of a child? Would you consider that child to be less than, equal to, or more than the responsibility of a person for their animals that they own. Right? I'm not saying a kid should be treated like an animal, obviously, but for legal purposes, would you say that a child is less than, equal to, or greater than an animal?
The parent's responsibility to them?
Let's just correct, but to
Okay.
keep it simple, is your child less than, equal to, or greater than an animal, a regular animal?
Greater.
Right. So if the Torah holds a owner of an animal liable when that animal does damages, then all the more so your child, right? Even if your child is under majority, even if they're under 12 or 13, but if they're so bad that they're, you know, they're so uneducated and unrestrained that undisciplined is the word I was looking for, that they're causing harm, not just in your house, but there's even you shouldn't wait till they're causing harm. Serious concern that they may cause harm outside of your house, in society, at your neighbors, then the parents are responsible for that. And I mean, if this is the case with an animal, all the more so for your kids. So that's what I was going to say in response to Victor asking about when the authorities need to get involved. There's no age limit if the social disruption or public nuisance is gone outside of your house. There's no age limit, even if they're under 13. The government should be able to get involved if necessary. If this is the case for an animal, then of course also with your child, right? And that goes for negligence, not taking care of your kid, as well as if your kid is causing harm to other people. Uh, I'm not a fan of the overreach of government coming into your house, but if the misbehavior is gone out of your house, and or you even think that it's a good chance it could go out of your house, then you need help. Don't wait for the moment that your child is like burning down your neighbor's house or slashing your neighbor's tires. Don't wait for that moment. It's better that you have still the control to decide what outside forces are going to come and help intercede, because you do need help if it's that bad. It's not always that bad, but sometimes it does get that bad. And it's not a failure. Sometimes there are also exceptions to the rule. Sometimes there's a kid who's just really more than one bargain for. It's a fact that sometimes there are these cases. It doesn't necessarily what is a failure is if you recognize you need help and you refuse to do it because of your own pride, because of what will people think about me? They're going to think I'm a failure. Stop thinking about that and think more about your kid and your neighbors. It's going to be way worse if you really need help and you're refusing to do it because what will they think? Well, what are they going to think when you didn't get help and you waited till it was too late? Right? Usually children are not that messed up. But sometimes, whether it's just the nature of the kid or maybe some psychological or neurological condition, or perhaps you were married to a spouse or it was you, it doesn't matter. In the past, what was done in the past can't be undone. So we have to live in the present and do what's necessary. And you don't want your kid reaching a point where they would be like a ben sorero more, a rebellious and gluttonous or drunken child. You don't want to get to that point. So you got to step in beforehand. Yeah,
You know, I have like 150 sheep running around right now, and I can count on my hand the rascals. I've got
but they
rascals.
exist. There are
They
those.
do.
Yeah.
They are so far over here to misbehaving compared to all the rest, and others are just absolutely pleasant and just a joy to be around. And then there's these rascals that I have to go and put in solitary little section of the field because they're going through fences and not learning anything. Anyway, so how much more so can it be present in humanity?
Definitely, it's a fact that it is. Yeah. All right, בואו נמשיך. Let's continue. מי הבא בתור? הלכה הבאה.
מי הבאה בתור?
יפה מאוד. יפה מאוד, כל הכבוד.
When a person's father or mother lose control of their mental faculties, their son should try to conduct his relationship with them according to their mental condition until God has mercy upon them. If it is impossible for him to remain with them because they have become very deranged, he should leave them, depart, and charge others with caring for them in an appropriate manner.
הלכה הבאה. Go ahead and say הלכה הבאה.
Halacha haba'a.
All right, and make sure when you do chaf, there's a lot of friction. Halacha. Halacha habaa.
Halacha haba'a.
Yes, ma'am. That's it.
Ani
Mamzer.
halacha.
Yes, sir. No, you don't, I don't really think we have to say halacha there. You could just say tur sheli, my turn.
Torah sheli.
Or if you want to repeat what she said, you can say halacha habaa. Halacha habaa. Next halacha.
Halacha. Halacha haba'a.
Because it's feminine.
A mamzer.
Mamzer. Mamzer.
Mamzer.
Right? That is the progeny of Torah prohibited intercourse.
Mhm.
So like a brother with his sister, God forbid, or something like that.
Could it also be just a Jew and a non-Jew?
No, never. Never, never.
Mm.
Mamzerim, this status does not exist for illicit relations between a Jew and a non-Jew. It's only when it's a progeny of two Jews. That doesn't mean the other is permitted or that it's a good
Interesting.
thing, but it's not,
Mhm.
it's a different status.
Okay.
Right, so mamzer.
Mamzer is obligated to honor and fear his father, even though he is not liable for striking him or cursing him until he repents. Even when his father was a wicked person who violated many transgressions, he must honor him and fear him. If he sees his father violate Torah law, he should not tell him, "Father, you transgressed Torah law." Instead, he should tell him, "Father, is it not such and such written in the Torah?" As if he is asking him rather than warning him.
And again, Kal Homer, all the more so for regular, parents who are not mamzerim. Or, well, if he's a mamzer, that's why it's assuming the father's wicked, because he's a mamzer because of his father's wickedness. Right.
So it's a reflection of his father, not of him.
Correct. Halacha haba'a. Shel mi hator. Shel mi hator. And here the word me doesn't mean me, myself. It means who. Me is how you say who. Shel mi hator. Of whom is the turn?
Tur sheli. When a person's father tells him to violate the words of the Torah, whether he tells him to transgress a negative commandment or not to fulfill a positive commandment, even if all that is involved is a point of rabbinic law, he should not listen to him. As can be inferred from Leviticus chapter 19, verse 3, a person must fear his mother and father, and keep my Sabbaths. Implied is that all are honoring me. Halacha haba'a.
Beautiful.
Torah sheli. The following laws apply when a person's father tells him, "Draw water for me," and he has the opportunity to perform a mitzvah. If it is possible for the mitzvah to be performed by others, they should perform it, and he should concern himself with honoring his father. For we do not negate the observance of one mitzvah because of the observations of another mitzvah. If there are no others able to perform the other mitzvah, he should perform the mitzvah and neglect his father's honor, for he and his father are obligated to perform the mitzvah. Torah must surpass honoring one's father and mother.
For study.
Torah study.
Halacha haba'a.
Tur Shali. If a person's father tells him, "Bring me a drink of water," and his mother tells him, "Bring me a drink of water," he should overlook his mother's honor and honor his father first. Both he and his mother are obligated to honor his father. Halacha haba'a.
Certainly not.
Ur Sheli.
Certainly not
Okay.
gaining the favor of feminists here.
No, but actually, I like this. I like this section. It did grate me a little bit, and I'm thinking, yeah, you got to do this. I mean, it's good information. It's how a house needs to be run and respected, I would say. A person is obligated to honor his father's wife, even though she is not his mother, throughout his father's lifetime, for this is included in honoring his father. Similarly, he should honor his mother's husband throughout her lifetime. After her death, however, he is not obligated to honor him.
Right, and it
It is
doesn't say it's not praiseworthy. It doesn't say he's not obligated by rabbinic law or by local norms. There are many concepts in halacha that when you're learning, you need to take into consideration. Usually, such as here, it is first and foremost dealing with the Torah obligation. This is one of the reasons why if at all possible, we should learn with scholars to the within reason, within one's ability. So, for example, there's a concept of ulim biqdusha wala yoradim, that we are to increase in sanctity and not decrease. And our sages applied this concept to many things. And the idea is, let's say, for example, somebody joined the people of Israel and they came from a non-Israelite culture. But in that culture, they happen to have a certain practice which is in line with the spirit of Torah. It's parallel to a commandment of the Torah. And if by the technical letter of the law, since they convert to the Jewish people, they may not be obligated in that particular thing for whatever reason. And there are examples. I just don't want to go on a tangent. So if for whatever reason they're technically not required to uphold that degree of devotion or piety once they convert, well, if that was the norm, though, for the non-Jews from whom they came, they should not now just throw that out the window, right? They at least need to maintain that same baseline or go up in their observance, but they should not go down, right? And this is a rabbinic concept that's not explicitly taught in the Torah, but it is a principle that we find in rabbinic teaching. One ascends in holiness. You do not go back. You do not go down, right? So if you're in a society where someone raised you and they're not technically your biological father, but they raised you as their father, if in your society it would be dishonorable to stop honoring him just because your mother passed away, then if you join the people of Israel, you should at least maintain that base level of respect and dignity. It's not only reflective negatively on you if you say, oh, because I became Jewish, I don't need to maintain the baseline level of respect that would be expected of me in this society. Not only does it reflect badly on you, but it will reflect badly on all the Jewish people, on the Torah, and on the God of Israel. So, what do? We go up in holiness. We do not go down. We do not lessen from it. Yalla ba'u namshich.
It is a rabbinical decree that a person is obligated to honor his oldest brother as he is obligated to honor his father.
Is that referring to only if one has an older brother or the oldest son in the family?
I see what you're saying.
For instance, I have two younger brothers. but no older brothers. Would that apply to my brother who's 10 years younger than me?
A very, very good question. So there are opinions regarding that. However, there are different opinions about it. So you should do what makes the most sense to you. And also keep in mind, when in doubt, it's a rabbinic decree. Okay. I think that for me personally, I think that this should be from bottom up, meaning not just your absolute oldest brother, but let's say someone has 4 older brothers. You should be respecting all of his older brothers. And the one above him should be respecting all of his older brothers. And it's not that you can or that you're permitted to disrespect those younger than you or younger than the oldest. It's not that you are permitted to disrespect them. You have the baseline duty to love and honor all of, they all fall under the category of your neighbor. What this is talking about are the special aspects of honor, not sitting in their place, not contradicting what they say in a disrespectful way. You can disagree and contradict, but it should be done in a roundabout way, in a way that's exhibiting humility, right? But in my opinion, I think it's proper to do this for whatever siblings are older than you. And you can take it or leave it. All right. Let's go to Hebrew. We still have a little bit of time left. Does anybody have any questions regarding anything that we've read? That was an excellent question, Miss Heather, the digital holy cyborg.
Cyborg. I have a question for Heather. Which one of your 2 younger brothers is the older brother?
The one that's 10 years younger than me, or the one that's 15 younger than me?
Yeah, so the 15 would be not an older brother to anyone, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I guess there are other aspects. I guess here the context is honoring father and mother, but there are duties that a brother might do, or that you might need the brother to do, even if he's younger. Does that play in here or no?
I was not paying attention. Sorry.
That's all right. I don't know
You're
if
gonna
I
have
want
to
to
say all that
expound.
one more time.
Yeah. So the younger brother who's an oldest brother or an older brother to someone else anyway, because he's the older of the 2 younger brothers, does he carry duties that may fall on him outside of just the whole honoring parents scenario that we've been discussing today? Does he have other?
Duties to that older brother?
I think you're asking maybe if he has duties as the oldest son.
Probably. Yeah.
What are you asking?
Yeah. There are other aspects of Torah and halakha that deal with the son's duties. Here we're talking about, I think, affording respect to that person, but there are other aspects where that younger son may fill a role.
Younger sibling?
Yeah, sibling. Thank you.
Well, with regard to Yibum, if your brother's spouse, I'm sorry, if your brother's spouse is made a widow and they didn't have kids, then you have a duty to have a family with her. It's a duty. You're not required to. The Torah gives a way in which you can get out of it, but that ritual it consists of actions that may not be as obvious in the modern perspective as highly disrespectful, but in traditional Middle Eastern society, the components of that ritual, which is spitting in a shoe and anything regarding a shoe in the Middle East, is considered very disrespectful. That's why they threw a shoe at George W. Bush. It wasn't just that they threw something at him. It was on purpose that it was a shoe, right? So although although there is not a penalty if you choose to release yourself of the duty to have a family with your brother's widowed wife, there's no penalty for it other than that ceremony, which is considered shameful. But the fact that it's set up in a way to be shameful shows that, well, it shows two things. It shows that assuming she would want to be married with you, obviously, and the marriage is considered automatic, by the way. You have to give her a divorce. It's just simply that this ritual, the Yibum ritual, no, the Halitza, no, I'm getting things confused. Yibum is the concept of marrying her, but Halitza is the ritual. So that is permitted, but it's the way it's set up is to make you feel bad. And this teaches us that it's proper for you to do it. It's proper for you to take her under your wings and sustain her. I don't know that it's necessarily as severe on a fundamental level in a modern Western society where women don't even have such a expectation that her husband's brother would take her in as his wife. She's still automatically married and they have to be divorced if they don't want to be together. But I don't know that it's as severe on an ethical level as it is in historical contexts where poverty was a real issue
So,
and having already been married.
so if
it
a
puts
woman is
one in a
married to,
stigma, puts one in a stigma where they may never end up getting married again. But in societies where that's not the issue, I don't know that it's ethically so bad. Yes, sir.
yeah. So a woman who's married to, say, a brother or a man who has brothers, and he dies, she's already married to the next younger.
Yeah.
Even if he's already married, how's that work?
Even if the
If he
brother,
has his own, yeah,
the surviving brother,
yeah,
because there's no concept of only being married to one wife by divine decree in the Torah. That
yeah.
may be much more feasible. That may be much more easy to fulfill your duties to your wife if you only have one wife. I think so, probably for most guys. But it is not a Jewish concept that you can only be married to one wife. It is true that the Jewish mainstream has accepted that upon themselves. And
Mhm.
if your community has accepted something upon themselves, that's a reality, you know. But you cannot rewrite the Torah to add a commandment or a prohibition that's not there.
So
And
when your husband dies, you're then required to divorce the brother.
that means even today, even in Jewish communities where they don't accept having more than one wife at all, there are still Jews who have more than one wife automatically.
Interesting.
But there's community pressure that he will go through this ritual so that he will only have one wife. And of course he keeps his already existent wife.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is though, that the idea of having only one wife as a requirement by divine law is foreign to Judaism. It is not a requirement by divine law. Now, if you get into it in more details and you be more specific, is it a requirement that if you have an additional wife, you should do so with the knowledge and approval of your present wife? That's another question. So that can be debated, and it is debated, and there's certainly room for different opinions about that. Whether if you're going to have another wife, that's on the condition that your present wife would agree to it, and that it'd be someone that she agrees to. And that's a whole different question, and there are different opinions about that. But yeah, we have to be careful not to look at Torah through the filter of modern social norms, which, at least in the Western world, are very, very influenced by Christian beliefs. And not all those beliefs are bad inherently. I don't think it's bad. I think it's probably the right thing for most men to only have one wife. But it's not a divine decree. It's not a divine mandate. And we can't just, I'm not just saying that to make certain people happy. It's a very severe thing to add to the Torah. You cannot add to the Torah. And there are plenty of very modern Jews of very modern political persuasions, and I don't mean right wing and left wing, I mean on both sides. But there are many people who are of Jewish, I mean, they're born bound to the covenant of Torah, and because they feel social pressure, or not even because of pressure, but because they were raised so influenced by Western norms that they try to make modern socio-political norms the Torah. So they conflate the two. And that is a severe problem. That's a huge problem. It's it's, it's ridiculous. And there's nothing wrong or shameful for saying, if I could write the Torah, I would make this a commandment. You can only have one wife. That's fine, you're just being honest. But we should also recognize that the God of the universe probably knows a little bit more than ourselves. And he didn't make that a law. And to the contrary, he put certain situations where, like the Yibum situation, where a person is automatically married to two women. However, he also gave a way to get out of it. Yeah. And I also, I mean, you don't have to agree, but I think that there are certainly, and this is Yosef's words, I know this is not in the Torah, I'm not saying this is in the Torah, but I think, at least reality as I've perceived it up until this point in my life, I think that there are certainly social situations where it is righteous to have more than one wife, and that to prohibit having more than one wife is even detrimental to society and cruel to women. But I don't think this is the case in all societies or in all cultures. I think it depends on where you live in the world and what the situation is where you live. And the Torah, you have to remember, is given for all generations. So it's not going to change itself. God did not change some commandment of the Torah for certain periods of time that are the exception to the rule. Right? That's that. Okay, I'm waiting for Heather to beat me over the head, but she can't because she's a cyborg.
Yep, just AI, can't protest.
Sorry. This is not a woman's world, but it's also not a man's world. Because trust me, there are plenty of guys who don't want to be automatically married to their sister-in-law. This is not a dirty machismo, what do you call it? Misogynistic law that's put there for the nasty lusts of dirty men. If it were, there would be a stipulation if the man likes her. But it's regardless. This is because the fact of the matter is, throughout history, number one, human populations have been way, way smaller. We live during an era of immense population boom that was not the reality until only the last few centuries. Human populations were way smaller. Economic opportunities were minuscule, and for the most part, and you don't have to go back 2,000 years. You only need to go back a few generations. Most people were just concerned about surviving. And the Torah was not concerned about, are you in love with her? Is she in love with you? It was concerned about love in action. Actions that exhibit love, not emotional feelings. And that doesn't mean those feelings are invalid or that they have no value. I think they do have a value, but that is not supposed to be, from a Torah perspective, that is not the foundation of a marriage. If you are completely unattracted to a woman, that may be a different question, because then you have the question, how can you fulfill your marital duties? But I do know, at least anecdotally for myself, that most men, even if they're not attracted to a woman, they are able to fulfill marital duties to a woman. Most men are able to do that. And they may just have certain preferences, but that's an issue of preference.
If the woman has a 13-year-old son, is all this still happening automatically, or is there?
Again, all of it's automatic. It's automatic.
Interesting.
Wait. You said if the woman has a 13-year-old son.
Yes, if her husband died,
sorry.
but they have an older son.
Well, she already has a son.
Okay, so it has to do with having a son. What if it's a 5-year-old son?
No, she has kids. This
Yeah.
is if she had no kids.
Got it.
Had
She
no
has
kids.
heirs now.
Yeah. I do think it's a good question, and maybe there is such a thing because it has been a long time since I reviewed these laws. I'm not talking about what the Torah says. I know what the Torah says. We're talking about how the ancient sages of Israel expounded on it. I think it's a very good question, what you just asked. And maybe it is there. I really don't remember that. But there is a concept of you have not fulfilled your Torah duty to have kids. A male has not fulfilled his obligation to have kids
Mhm.
until he has had one boy and one girl. So I
Oh.
do see room for a question there. Maybe she had a boy but not a girl.
So it may
I
not
don't
be,
I
the
don't think
duties
that's
may not
there.
be done in
I don't think that's
a
there,
few
but
weeks.
it might be. I don't remember. Go ahead.
The duty of the man may not be done in a few weeks. In other words, once the woman becomes pregnant, they can get divorced. You got to wait till you have the child, or how's that work?
I don't. You're so funny. I don't completely understand the context of your
How I
question.
plated it. Yeah. So the requirement is that the duty is to make sure that she has children.
Correct. And also remember, children, not politically correct. We know. But and I'm not talking to you, I'm talking about, to whatever viewers like, oh my God. This is not politically correct, but keep in mind that children historically, and also whether we want to admit it or not, still and always will be a sort of insurance for parents.
Mhm.
Parents eventually get old, and for most of history, we did not have advanced, sophisticated insurance plans like we have the privilege of having now. Parents were a way that people would survive. I'm sorry, well, also parents, but also children. Children were the way that a person would be able to survive and not suffer destitute poverty in their old age. I mean, they would probably still be poor, but they don't have to worry about, you know, especially a woman being taken advantage of by ravaged wolves, barbarians who act like wolves. Um, so that I, I don't remember the sages talking about it, but I think that's another reason why your question about a son is legitimate. Maybe she has a daughter, but does she have a son who could maybe, who would be likely more physically capable to protect her? If she has a daughter, that daughter's going to get married off and join another family. So I don't remember if the halacha makes a distinction about that, whether she only has a daughter or a son. But even if it doesn't, I think that makes a lot of sense what you brought up. And that could be something to take into consideration for personal practice or community practice. But I think that's very reasonable. Good questions, you guys. Who's ready for Hebrew, or are you all halachic out? Halachicized out. Judaized out. You guys
Judaized.
want a little bit of Hebrew?
Let's do some Hebrew.
All right, Hebrew time. Hey, happy Mother's Day. Miss Heather, calling all mothers. Let's read the one to the right, and then you can read Victor can read what's on the left.
Okay. Revere your mother. You shall each revere your mother and your father, but keep my Sabbaths. I am the Eternal, your Supreme Lord. Leviticus, Wayikra, 19:3.
And we learned this in the halachot that we just read, that even though we are commanded to honor and revere our parents, that is not to the cancellation of God's commandments. And that is what is traditionally understood, how the sages understood this passage. God says, revere your parents, but not to the cancellation of my Sabbaths, right? And here, Sabbath is just kind of a archetype variable stand-in for all of the commandments, right? So yes, revere your parents, but do that while keeping my commandments. Don't think honor your
I got an
parents.
out now. I
And
got an
now
out.
I don't have to write. And I've actually experienced that I don't need to get into that, but
Mhm.
this happens. Yeah. All
Okay.
right. Tur shalcha, habibi.
Anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. Exodus 21:17.
All right, and we already learned about that in detail. Heather, tur shalach.
Hear, my child, your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching, for they are a garland of grace on your head and a chain to adorn your neck. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8 through 9.
Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Proverbs 23:22.
And why does it need to say that? Because it's easier, in the same way it's easier to revere your father than your mother. Usually the father's more intimidating. You could understand honoring your mother, but fear her, right? But in the same way that it's more easy to understand fearing your father than your mother, it's also more easy to understand fearing your mother when she's younger and more physically capable than when she's older. Even if you do not say, okay, now I can disrespect her when she's older, but it may be more tempting to when you see that she's no longer able to defend herself or to speak as loudly. She's no longer a formidable character as she used to be. Even then, even if she wasn't the sweetest mother that maybe walks the planet, don't say, now she's old, I don't have to worry about it. Be extra careful, be extra meticulous to revere your mother, especially when she's older, because that's when you're going to be more likely to stumble in the commandment. All right, Heather, Tur Shalach. We're going to read. You can read the English. Now we're going to read it in Hebrew.
Okay.
Go ahead,
You
read
shall
one more time.
you shall each revere your mother and your father, but keep I am your supreme Lord.
All right, we're going to go in the Hebrew. You want to
Ish,
practice? Go ahead. B'chavod.
imo, avewa,
Wa'aviyu. Wa'aviyu.
wa'aviu.
You accent the part that has the cantillation mark. So the resh, its vowel has the cantillation mark. That's what's accent.
Tira'u,
Tira'u. Tira'u.
tira'u. Wa'eth, shabthosai,
All right. And anytime you have a dagesh over a shawa, shawa is the colon looking symbol. Anytime there's a dagesh, a dot and a letter over a shawa, then it is a sounded shawa that is an unaccented syllable all unto itself. So shabbet, shabbethothai, shabbethothai.
shabethosai.
That's it.
Tishmoru,
Tishmeru. We accent the O because it has a cantillation mark. Tishmeru.
tishmoru. Ani, Adonai, Elohechem,
All right. Elohecham, Elohecham.
Elohechem.
We accent it because it has a method, the little vertical line.
When there aren't cantillation marks, is there a general rule for which syllable gets accented? Because I feel like I'm misapplying the accent all the time.
Great question. A lot of non-native speakers end up accenting the wrong parts of the word because they have heard early on that in Hebrew you always accent the last syllable. And so they then do that for all the words. But really, it's true that most of the time you would accent the last syllable, but that's only with verbs. It's not only with verbs, but as far as it being usually the case, only with verbs and only with two-syllable verbs. Okay? You have many more exceptions when they're not a two-syllable verb. And if it's a two-syllable noun, very often nouns that are only two syllables have the first syllable accented. Not always, there are exceptions. So yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule, and that's part of
Okay.
and it's also a very, very good reason to practice reading Hebrew using the Torah, where it has the amim, where it has the cantillation marks, the musical notations, because they help you know which part of the word to accent. That's not that's not expressed in most vowelized texts. So yeah, you know how to pronounce the vowels, but you don't know, is it attribute or is it attribute? And that can completely change the
Mhm.
meaning of the word. And I got to think of some funnier examples because I'm sure there's some other really funny examples. And it really can change the meaning of words. So please make at least 15 minutes a day if you're able to, and most people are able to. Just 15 minutes a day reading the weekly Torah portion, not just with vowelized text, but with the cantillation marks. In most printed versions of the Torah, what we call a Humash, a printed text of the Torah, have the cantillation marks. And that will help you know where to accent the words. Other than that, there's no way to learn it unless you're actually engaging with people or watching videos or music. But other than that, that's the only real widely available and consistent way to learn which parts of words are accented from reading text. You're not going to figure that out by reading a ton of text. You still won't know. Even if you read 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day, you're not going to know unless you're, in addition to the text, hearing people speak, right? So that's the advantage of following the guidelines of our sages and reading the weekly Torah portion every day of the week, right? There's a reason it's divided into 7 portions, so it's more manageable each day. And anything is better than nothing. At least do 3 verses a day, and that will help. All right, so Mr. Victor, here we have it transliterated. Before we continue, let's say it together. You guys can repeat after me word by word. Ish,
Ish,
Immo,
Imo,
Imo,
Wa'aviyu, Wa'aviyu,
Wa'aviu,
Aviu,
Tira'u,
Tira'u,
Tirau,
Wa'eth,
Wa'eth,
Es,
Shabbathothai,
Shabbathosai,
Shabbathai,
Ishmoru,
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 Ani,
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 Adonai,
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 Elohecham.
Elohechem.
Elohechem.
All right, now let's all say it together here. This is not the entire verse. These are just 2 phrases from it that I've transliterated that we're going to focus on. All right, one more time. Ish,
Ish,
Imo,
Ish,
Mo,
Imo,
Wa'aviyu,
Aviru,
Wa'aviu,
Tira'u,
Tirau,
Tira'u,
Wa'eth,
Wa'eth,
Shabbathothai,
Shabbathosai,
Shabbathai,
Ishmoru.
Tishmoru,
All right. Okay. Ish, Imo, Wa'aviyu, Tira'u. Ish. All right, Mr. Victor, Maze ish. Maze means what is. Maze ish.
a person,
All right, literally it's a man, but it's being used here in a more general sense. Any person. Okay. Maze imo, Heather. Maze imo.
Mother, basically his,
All right, so what does it mean, mother his? Why don't we have it here written as his mother?
because it's the suffix on the word that
That's,
makes it his.
that's right. The pronoun, the individual that the mother is possessed by, grammatically possessed, we mean. The possessive pronoun is at the end of the words in Hebrew. And not only here, but always. So if you have a noun, if you have a person, place, or a thing, and you want to say it belongs to something, that which it belongs to or is being associated with is always going to be either indicated as a suffix at the end of the noun or by the following word, never before it, as you would do in English. All right, so his mother in Hebrew is literally mother his. Mr. Victor, tur shalcha, your turn.
and father his,
Okay, and why do we say that? Aviyu. Why do we say and father his? We can't hear you.
explain it. That's because I wasn't talking.
Oh, okay. So it's just like with the previous word. Miss Heather, you want to summarize it in your own words?
In Hebrew, a a pronoun about who the noun belongs to is always following the noun,
Right. It's always
either
following
in
the
a
noun.
suffix or in the next word.
That's right. It's never immediately before the thing which is possessed. That's right. Mr. Victor.
You shall fear, y'all.
You shall fear, y'all.
You shall fear, y'all.
I didn't know any other way to express this ultra literally. So
I see.
it's not as a joke. I don't know how else to do it.
It's
The
Louisiana.
plural you.
Hebrew has a plural you, and English actually has a plural you. The word you is the plural you in English. It's just that modern English stopped using the singular you, which is ye. But colloquially, people don't know that you is already plural, so that's kind of obsolete nowadays. So y'all is filling the role of what English already has, but just stopped using.
So you people refers to a group. Ye people, ye person would be the
Yep.
single.
That's right. That's right. But in modern English, we needed to come up with something else because the general population forgot that.
And
So
Cajuns to the rescue. Good.
Cajuns, that's right. Y'all. All right. So I put y'all here at the end, Mr. Victor. Why did I put you shall fear y'all instead of y'all shall fear?
Well, I don't know the suffix that we're looking at here,
The,
but
the shuruk, the vav with the dot in it at the end, right here.
okay.
That's
So
the
so the you shall fear
y'all.
the collective people would be the oo at the end, or
That's
the
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's the people you're speaking to. Right.
I guess the way for me to see that would be what would be if it was to a single person.
If it's
You
to an
shall
individual.
fear.
Okay, so
Instead of
let's
an
look.
oo, what would I see?
You would just see tira. Tira. So the tav
Okay.
at the beginning, the root word is yir'ah. I was pointing here, but it is actually here. They're the same construct, though.
Mhm.
Tira'u, tishmoru, same construct, conjugation. But the basic word is yir'ah. Yir'ah means fear or reverence. Yir'ah. Adding a tav at the beginning of it turns it into a verb. And there are other ways to turn it into a verb, but the tav at the beginning of yir'ah turns it into a verb, which is being directed toward second person. Who can tell us what second person means? Second person means you are speaking to them. You're not talking about them, but to them. So the tav at the beginning lets you know a second person, i.e. you or y'all, right? So if you see a tav, you know it's either you or y'all, someone you're speaking to. You do not know whether it is you or y'all unless you glance at the end. If there's no vav, and it's just the tav and the word, the root word, then it's singular you. If it's tav and a u at the end, then it's plural you, y'all. Made sense?
That helps. Thank you.
Heather, can you say it in your own words? Explain it also in your own words. How do we know that it's y'all shall fear, plural, y'all, as opposed to you shall fear, singular?
Because of the oo suffix on the end refers to multiple second persons.
Exactly. Second person plural. That's right. That means it's many people who you're speaking directly to. Right. And what is the absence of the oo? When you have a T at the beginning, and not only in this word, but with any verb in Hebrew, any verb.
It'd
If you
just be
have the,
he.
it would still be you, but it would be you
Okay,
singular.
right.
Okay. All right. So the oo suffix is what lets you know a second person plural as opposed to second person singular. Right. And you have it here also, but here it's not a verb. It's a similar thing for nouns, but because it's a noun, it's affecting the possession instead of who the action is being done to. It's a matter of possession. So his. All right. So ish imo avihu, a man or a person, his mother and his father, tira'u, tira'u, he shall fear. And you also see here the syntax, how the sentence structure is different in Hebrew from English. In English, you would say, you should fear your father and mother, or you should fear your mother and father. But in Hebrew, the fear is coming at the end. So instead of subject, verb, object, in Hebrew, it's the other way around. It's subject, object, verb. And also very often it's verb, object. And the subject is latent in the verb. Right? So that's one of the difficult things about Hebrew for English speakers, because you can't just take out a dictionary and translate the Bible. You can't just use a concordance or a lexicon and think you understand the Bible in the original language. You also have to understand the structure of the sentence and understand how different it is from English. If you try to translate it like English sentence structure, you're going to butcher it. It'll be completely mistranslated. It might even be a translation that makes sense in English, but it will not be what the Hebrew says. A man, you might translate this if you do not know Hebrew syntax, Hebrew sentence structure. You could accurately translate all these words, but in the wrong order and get a completely different sentence. A man, okay, here's another word. A man and his mother and his father, y'all shall fear my Sabbaths. You get it? You see what happened? We translated it, each word correctly, but according to English syntax, according to English sentence structure. And we got a completely different sentence. Instead of
I
a
can
man,
see where the concordance would be problematic, but do translations usually butcher it that bad? When they
no,
actually lay it out, they try to do better.
not professional translations. Even
Yeah.
if you have like a theological bias, usually they don't mess it up this much. Right? But you could be an individual somewhere who has doubts about translations, and there's reason for some doubts and uncertainties. But don't think that just because you know the translation of each word, that means you can correctly translate the Bible by yourself. You need to understand also Hebrew sentence structure. Otherwise, you could accidentally, I'm not saying you're doing it on purpose per se, you could accidentally translate, you shall revere your mother and father as your mother and your father should fear my Sabbaths. Right? All right, let's do the next one. Heather, would you like to read?
Honor your father and your mother as the eternal, your supreme Lord has commanded you, that your days and that it will be good for you in the land that the eternal, your supreme Lord is giving to you. Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter 5, verse 16.
Let's read it one more time if you don't mind, because you cut out. And
Oh. Honor your father and your mother as the eternal, your supreme Lord.
It's kind of bad. I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you don't mind, we'll try one more time and then we'll just give up if it does it again. Maybe try to read the beginning of it a little bit slower to let your mic adjust.
I've got noise filtering for the background noise here, so let me try adjusting that real quick. Let's try medium.
Yeah, I hear the difference.
Honor your father and your mother as the eternal, your supreme Lord has commanded you, that your days may be lengthened and that it will be good for you in the land that the eternal, your supreme Lord is giving to you. Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter 5, verse 16.
Now let's put the filter back on, but that worked.
I was thinking possibly turning off the video if your audio was bugging might give it a little more bandwidth.
All right. To save time, we're going to go ahead and read. I'll read it through in Hebrew first. If you guys want to repeat after me. Kabed eth avicha. Kabed eth avicha. You can see it right here. Kabed eth avicha. Everybody say.
Kabed
eth avicha.
Avicha.
Okay. Wa'eth imecha. Wa'eth imecha.
Eth
Va'eth
imecha.
imecha.
All right. Ka asher sliwacha Adonai. Let's say it together. Ka asher
Asher
Ka asher.
sliwacha
Si
siwaha
wacha.
Adonai
Adonai.
Adonai
Elohecha.
Elohecha.
Elohecha
Elohecha.
Elohecha.
Lema'an. You see the cantillation mark is telling you accent this syllable. Lema'an.
Ma.
Lama'an.
Good. How many syllables is this word? 2 or 3? Lema'an.
3.
That's right. Lema'an. You should hear 3 distinct syllables. If you see 3 vowels, there should be 3 syllables. If you see 3 vowels, but you only hear 2 syllables, that means that we are not clearly enunciating some part of the word. Lema'an, for the sake of, or in order to. Ya arichun. Ya arichun.
Ya
Ya
arihun.
arihun.
Yamecha. Yamecha.
Yamecha.
Yamecha.
Ulma'an. Ulma'an.
Ul ma'an.
Ulma'an.
Good. And in order to, for the sake of, yitab. I'm sorry, yitab. Yitab.
Yitab.
Yitar.
And why did I correct myself? Yitab. Because the accent's over here. Usually, at least in modern Hebrew, you would accent the second part. Yitab lach. Let's say it together. Yitab lach. It shall go well with you. Yitab
Yitab lach.
al ha-adama. Al ha-adama.
Adama. I don't see ho. Ha.
Was right here. Ha.
Ha.
In classical Hebrew, the sound of hamas, the vowel that looks like a capital T,
Mm-hmm.
little capital T, it makes a sound distinct from patah, which is the line, the vowel that looks like a flat line. In modern Hebrew, they pronounce them the same, and in most Middle Eastern communities, they pronounce them the same. Yemenite Jews distinguish between them. A few other smaller Middle Eastern communities also do, but the most popular pronunciations among Middle Eastern Jews is to pronounce them the same, also in modern Hebrew. But Yemenite Jews and Ashkenazi Jews are very careful to distinguish them. So patah is ah, that's the flat line looking vowel. Patah is ah, and qamos is ah. Ha-adama. Ha-adama. All right, the land, so that it will be well with you on the land, upon the land. Asher Adonai. Asher Adonai.
Asher Adonai.
Come on, Papa Victor.
Asher Adonai.
All right. Now let's do it again. Adonai Elohecha. Adonai Elohecha.
Adonai
Adonai.
Elohecha.
Right?
Adonai
Adonai
Elohecha.
Elohecha. Make sure you guys are doing a lot of friction for the chaf. Nathan Lach. Nathan Lach.
Nathan Lach.
Lach.
Yofi. So that is what we read here on the left. All right, Mr. Victor, go ahead and read it. Don't worry, I'm not going to correct you. Just go ahead and read through it, more or less.
Kabed.
The chafs at the end are a chaf sound.
Kabed et ahavecha.
Aviv.
Wa'et avicha. Wa'et emaka.
Imecha.
Imecha. Lama'an.
Lama'an. Capital letters are the accented syllable.
Lama'an. Ya'arekan.
Ya'arichun.
Ya'arikun. Yamecha. Lama'an. Lama'an. Yi tav lak.
All right. When we do not pronounce the final kaf as a kha, it makes it sound very Arabic. This is one of the differences between Hebrew and Arabic. That in Arabic the suffix is same exact suffix, meaning the same exact thing, all becomes a ka. In Hebrew, it's usually a kha. Sometimes it's a ka in Hebrew. Here, I just left it as a K for simplicity, because putting in all the diacritical marks in English takes a long time. All right. Miss Heather, Tur Shalach. What's the word on the screen?
Kabed.
All right. Mr. Victor.
Avika.
Avicha. Heather.
Wa'es.
Beautiful.
Imeka.
Right? Imecha. And I left it just as a K because even if one struggles with making the sound ha, in the case of the letter ha, even if one just says a K sound, they will consistently still be understood in Hebrew. That's in contrast to the letter het. If a person pronounces the letter het as a K, that can really become confusing in Hebrew. So not all mispronunciations are the same. Some are more understandable than others. All right. Mazik kabed. Heather, I want you to say the Hebrew and then tell us what it means. And then
Kab-
Victor will be next.
Kabed. Honor.
Avika. Father, your.
All right. So avicha, your father.
Wa'es. And.
Imecha. Your mother.
Good. Imecha. Mother, your, literally, your mother. All right. Lema'an ya'arichun. Sorry, lema'an ya'arichun. No, I got the accent wrong. Normally in Hebrew, we would say ya'arichun, but the accenting here is at the end. Right? Lema'an ya'arichun yamecha. All right, so now we're looking at the second one. Kabedet avicha wa et imecha. Honor your father and your mother. Lema'an ya'arichun yamecha. All right, now we're breaking this down. Heather, Tur Shalach, your turn.
Lama'an.
Ya'arikun.
Good. Now that's more like modern Hebrew, ya'arichun. In the biblical Hebrew, it would be ya'arichun.
Yamecha.
Beautiful. All right, Mr. Victor, tell us the Hebrew and then the definition.
Lama'an. In order that.
Ya'arichun. They be lengthened.
Thank you for correcting my mistakes. It's still useful. I'm not sure if I'm gonna, maybe I should, but it's still useful because that is how they would have, a modern Hebrew speaker would read it.
Yamecha. Yamecha. Your days.
Beautiful.
Okay. Lema'an yitab lach. Heather, Tur Shalach.
Lama'an.
What does lema'an mean for memory?
I don't remember.
That's okay. Lema'an, I would write it down. It's somewhat frequent in the Siddur and Jewish prayer books. Lema'an means for the sake of or in order to. So in order to do something or for the sake of something.
Yitav. Yitav.
Good. Tur Shalach, Heather.
Lach.
All right. Mr. Victor, go ahead. Say the Hebrew and then the meaning.
Lama'an. In order that. That in order.
Yitav. It shall be good.
Lach. For you.
All right. So lema'an yitab lach, in order that it shall be good for you.
All right. So honor your mother Honor your father and your mother in order that it shall be good for you. لما عني طابلغ. Okay, and one review because we're still in Sefirat Omer. Let's read through these quickly. Safira, say after me. Safira,
Safira,
Sephira,
Omer,
Omer,
Ermer,
Se'ero,
Seora,
Qir, Qasir,
Kasir, Kasir,
Qasir,
Yekun,
Tekun,
Tekun,
Midoth,
Midos,
Midoth,
Asad,
Hesed,
Hesed,
Gevurah,
Gavura,
Gevurah,
Tifer,
Tiferet,
Tiferet,
Nesah, Nesah,
Nesach,
Nesach,
Hud,
Hod,
Hud,
Yesod.
Yesod.
Okay. Little quiz. Ma ze Safira. Who can tell us what is a Safira? Ma ze
Counting?
Safira. Very good. It means counting. It's a gerund. What else is a Safira? Mr. Victor, I'm looking at you.
like an attribute.
So in post Talmudic Judaism, and really it's from 13th century on, Jewish mysticism, the term Sephirah came to be used in reference to attributes of God, but especially in a neo-Gnostic sense, which is honestly is very, very problematic. It's not in harmony with fundamentals of classical Torah Judaism. But there were older ways of understanding Sephirot, and that was as simply as references to the ways in which we perceive God through his actions, rather than as references to some sort of actual entities that emanate from the Creator, heaven forbid. And when they say emanate, they don't mean simply that God created, but they mean emanate even before creation, uncreated emanations. That's a problem. The Torah Judaism does not espouse multiple existences or multiple entities that are uncreated. There's only one God, and he created the world without help of other entities.
So these are not addressed or prayed to or sought for guidance.
They should not be. Some people do. And they don't even exist. Just as with the idols, that they are nothing. So also this is just an idol in the mind for those who pray to them. But there's nothing wrong with praying to the Creator, blessed be he, and referring to him as the merciful one or the true judge or our king. That's perfectly fine, as long as you understand that these are not different existences within the being of God, but rather they're all referring to the same one, and our language is just reflecting how we perceive that one through his different actions in the world, through the different ways in which he relates to us. That's fine. The problem is when we imagine that these are separate entities. All right, that's no different from that's polytheism. It's no different between worshiping different gods of stone as opposed to worshiping different gods in the mind. It's the same thing, same prohibition. The only difference is, as long as a court can't see it, it can't be punished by a human court. That's the problem. All right. So Hector was Hector. I'm so sorry. It's a good thing we're not in the same room. I would be getting hit over here. That wasn't on purpose either. All right.
I don't think it'd be appropriate to hit your teacher after what we learned today,
That's
right?
right. I'm not going to hit them.
But being that they are also the students are also the elders, we'd both be in trouble. Okay. Safira is Heather. In this case, I did not refer to Victor as Heather. I referred to Heather as Hector.
Oh.
Heather was correct that in proper Hebrew, Safira refers to counting. All right. Umar. Maze Umar. Maze Umar. What is Umar?
That is what is counted, right?
Correct. The
The
current period.
yeah. Days
So Umr is a
a
sheaf,
sheaf.
a bundle of
Mhm.
grain. That's an Umr. So we're
Mhm.
counting the days of the from the time of the bundling of the grain, bringing it as an offering. Sa'ura. Maze sa'ura. And before you define it, say the word in Hebrew and then define it. Sa'ura. Sa'ura.
Se'ora, barley.
Mitsuyan. Are you doing this without looking?
I am.
All right. Milah ba'a qasir. Qasir.
Hector's doing very well.
Hector's killing it. Oh, that's not racist. All right. Qasir.
Kasir. I have to ask Heather what that means.
Maze qasir. It's from a Hebrew root word that means cutting, right? The qasir, to shorten something or to cut it. And here it refers to the harvest because you were cutting the produce.
Sheaves or the
Well, it could be any produce, but in this case, the sheaves. That's right. So qasir means a harvest. All right. Milah ba'a, next word. Tiqun. Tiqun. Maze tiqun.
Tikkun, repair.
Mitsuyan, excellent. Mitsuyan.
Tikkun is repair. There is a common phrase, especially in the English-speaking Jewish world. What is that phrase that makes use of this word?
Tikkun olam.
Exactly. Tikkun ulam, repairing the world. Not to be confused with a specific modern political ideology. Many people conflate the two. There can be overlap, but we should never conflate Torah with any political party or political ideology. Like, there's some truth in everything, but having something in common doesn't mean they are identical. And that's a huge mistake that often gets made in the modern Jewish world, in the United States. All right, that's tikkun, means to repair, to correct something. And in the Mishnah Hebrew, it can also refer to making something. All right, milah ba'a. How do we say next word?
Midoth.
How do we say
Oh,
the
how do you say?
expression next word?
Milah haba'a.
Right, that's right. Milah is word and haba'a. All right, milah haba'a. B'chavod, Victor, with a V.
Midoth. And I really think I should know this, but I drawn a
Yeah, we
blank.
do need to write this down because this is one of the most widely known Hebrew words, even among non-Hebrew speaking Jews. This is one of those words that is pretty much always going to be one of the very first words that people learn in Hebrew, even before they can really speak.
Is
So
it
midoth-
character?
It colloquially, it's come to be used to refer to character traits. So traits, attributes, or character traits. And that's not only in modern Hebrew, even in older Hebrew, it's used to refer to characters, like character traits, not a character, but a trait. And more literally, it refers to a measure, a measurement, or standards, but most basically a measurement. Like the word to measure in Hebrew is limdod. That is the earlier usage. And all of these usages are still common, even in modern Hebrew.
That might be where I'm thinking of it. Is it in Midot that we see the measurements of the tabernacle or the temple?
I'm not really sure what you're asking, if you can rephrase it.
In Mishnah, in Midot.
Ah, midot. Okay.
Is that where we
Yes,
see the
yes.
measurements? Okay.
Well, I know the different measurements.
Of
Are-
like the Azarah and the area, the altar, and all the measurements.
So how do you say next word?
Milah haba'a.
Yes. How do you say word?
Milah.
All right. And Mr. Victor, how do we say next?
Abaha.
If it's feminine, if you're saying next something feminine, you would say haba haba. If it's masculine, you would just say
Haba.
haba, right? But when it's feminine, you add an extra at the end. Not only for this word, but as a general rule. Right? So
Milah haba'a.
exactly. And when you're saying that, are you literally saying next word or are you saying word the next?
You tell me what I just said. Uh,
Word the next.
That's right. So let's make a note of this also. In Hebrew, the general rule, and you may find exception here and there, but they are really rare exceptions. The general rule is you do not say white house. You would say house the white. You would not say good person. You would say person good. So in this sense, Hebrew is not identical to Spanish, but is more similar to Spanish. You would say Casa Blanca, not Blanca Casa. So you would say Beit Lavan, not Lavan Beit. You would say house white, not White House. So, Mr. Victor, do you say next word or word the next?
well, literally word the next.
That's right. That's right. And that is going to be the general rule. For any noun, any person, place, or thing that you want to describe, first you say the actual thing itself without description. First you just say the main thing and then you describe it. For anything in Hebrew, right? Whether it's a person, place, or a thing.
All right, milah haba'ah. Next word. Mr. Victor, milah haba'ah.
Hesed,
Nahon, hesed. That's right. Mazeh hesed. What is hesed? Mazeh hesed.
is it mercy?
Nahon. It's very often translated as mercy. A more accurate rendition would be steadfast kindness or devoted loving kindness. It has an inherent connotation of devotion or consistency. That's why it's also used for Hasidim, Hasidic Jews, because they are devotees of their religious leader. Right? Hesed.
Milah haba'ah.
Barakallah. Tell Heather, milah haba'ah.
Hector. Milah haba'ah.
Gevura.
Gevurah.
Gevura.
Maze gevurah. What is gevurah? So the way you would say a man, well, there's more than one way, but one of the ways to say man in Hebrew is gever. And if you notice, gever, same root as here.
Is it strong? Strength?
Yes, it's strength. This word also, you can write it down. It is also used in rabbinic literature as a reference to God. Sort of how we say Almighty in English, the Almighty. You would say Hag-Gevurah, the most powerful, the most strong. Hag-Gevurah. And they say that in the same way that we would say Almighty in English.
Is it
Strong as
related?
in this. Go ahead.
It'd be related to Gibor then, right?
Gibor is a valiant Hebrew. They are certainly etymologically related. They have the same root, but there's different connotation.
Mhm.
A Gibor also connotes like heroism,
Mhm.
like being a hero. Whereas Gevurah doesn't necessarily connote that. So
Okay.
that's something to remember with Hebrew and all languages. Words may share a same root, which would mean there's something in the two words, two or more words. If they share the same root, there's something in those words that's common, but it does not necessarily mean they have the same meaning. There can be different connotations in different words, even though they have the same root, right? And that's also true for El, Eloah, and Elohim.
So a word that doesn't, especially in today's society, doesn't always seem as a super positive thing, but Pincus was probably a perfect example of someone who held this attribute.
Yes, definitely. And in Jewish context, it's better to say Pinhas.
Pinhas.
Frankly, I'm pretty certain that if you said Pinchas to most Jews, they would not know what you're saying. Seriously. So, yeah, Pinhas with the het. So you either want to say Pinhas or Pinchas with the chaf, but you have to do either a het or a chaf. You do not want to make that a k. And that's like I told you guys earlier. If it is the letter Chaf and it gets mispronounced as a K, that's usually intelligible. That'll usually still be understood, even if it's recognized as a mispronunciation, but they'll know what you're saying. But if you both turn the het into a K, it's very likely not to be understood. It's not just that they're being nitpicky. They will not know what you're saying, more likely than not. If you turn the het to a kaf and also accent the wrong syllable, almost certainly they will not know what you're saying unless they've been around a lot of Bible reading outside of a Jewish context. And maybe they would be able to get it, but that is not most Jews.
So on
Right.
our conversation earlier about taking over a people,
Mhm.
this attribute or this gevurah would
That's right,
be,
Scuba.
that's where we would see this played out, because it's like normally we don't be aggressive like that.
Correct.
We be kind and we reach out and we offer peace,
Right.
but there comes a point where it's like grab the spear.
And they are literally asking for it. If
Mhm.
someone's extending you an offer of peace and you consistently reject it, then what are you asking for? That's what you want. And love your neighbors yourself. You're going to get what you want. You know, don't cry after we give you what you've been begging for. Really.
Right. Yeah.
You should not be ashamed of that. No shame. They should be ashamed. And anybody who tries to shame us should be ashamed. We should call it out to their face what they are. No better than Nazi scum. That's what they are. Shameful, disgusting things are happening in the world without shame. And don't support any politician of any political party if he is not ashamed to call out terrorists who wear political garb and have doctor next to their name, terrorists who get elected as representatives and senators. If you support and call for financial support of terrorist groups, what you're literally supporting terror. Not this is not hyperbole. If you are proactively supporting terrorists, you are a partner in terrorism. There's a difference between just being an ignoramus saying, I don't really know what's going on. But if you proactively, you know what's going on, and you proactively try to shame Jews or any people who are truly engaging in a war of defense, not intentionally targeting civilians, or you know that they are not targeting civilians, but you sympathize with and encourage a misrepresentation of the reality on the ground, you are a terrorist. You know, if you know what you're doing.
It's as if you burned the children, you raped
Yeah.
the women.
Yes. I mean, no, they didn't literally do it, but there is a degree of shared responsibility.
Right.
Certainly. There is
Yeah.
shared response. And that's different from when someone really doesn't know. But there are plenty of these politicians, they know. They're not just some gullible old lady in a nursing home who's following the news and is just confused. They know.
Yeah. I'd
And
say
it's
there's some
shameful.
there's some that know and there's some that are just following others' leads
The
that don't
crowd.
really know. Sure.
The crowd. And that also has a degree of responsibility, but it's not to the same extent. There is like manslaughter. You can accidentally kill someone. You still engaged in terrible behavior, but that doesn't mean that it's the same degree of responsibility, but there's still responsibility. We shouldn't be vocal activists for anything unless we have really researched what it is.
Mm.
And there's a difference between being generally quiet and somebody asked your opinion and you just thought, well, I feel like maybe this or that, but I don't really know. That's fine if you gave your opinion. That's what you think, then that's what you think. But that's entirely different from someone who is proactively going out and vocally claiming things that are not true, right? And they should be ashamed. And we should not be ashamed for defending yourself or defending those who are defending themselves. And makom la mahablim. There's no place for terrorists. No place. You don't go to the negotiating table with them either. That's absurd. All right. Tif'ereth. Tif'ereth. The world needs to be restored to Tif'ereth. Maze Tif'ereth. Say the word and then the definition.
Tiferet, beauty.
Nachon, beautiful, beautiful. It's not just regular beauty. This is like splendorous beauty, and also it gets used in later Hebrew as a way of referring to balance or harmony.
Like
Tiferet,
glory to its
Yeah.
original glory kind of thing.
with harmony. There's a connotation of harmony. I don't know if that is latent in the meaning of the word in biblical Hebrew, but there is such connotation, at least in later Hebrew as well. Right? How do you say next word?
Milah haba'a,
Beautiful. And can you translate that?
word next.
Yefeh. All right. Milah haba'a b'chavod.
Let's see. Did we just do Tiferet?
We did
So
Tiferet.
Nisach,
Nesach. Nesach.
Nesach.
Mazen nesach.
Oh,
It's not one of the most early learned words in Hebrew. It might be among some of them because it's included in the Sefirot in Jewish Gnostic mysticism. So for that reason, it is often among one of the earliest, but it's not like one of the absolute earliest. And you don't have to prioritize it. But I listed it here because of it frequently being encountered during the counting of the Omer due to the Gnostic infiltration of the Jewish people. All right, so
I'm thinking of a different word as I was looking at it. It was Nusach.
very good. That's with a Samit. That's with a Samit. This is a Saudi.
Nesach.
They're both syllables, meaning they're both made with air flowing between the tip of the tongue and the roof of the mouth. But Samich, you take the tip of your tongue and you make slight contact near your front upper teeth, whereas Saudi should not be a TS in proper Hebrew. In classical Hebrew, it's not a TS. It's also an S, but the point of contact is different. Instead of like a Samich being near the front upper teeth, Saudi's point of contact should be a little bit further back near the alveolar ridge. That's if you use the tip of your tongue to feel the roof of your mouth. If you slide your tongue back, you should feel where there's a ridge and then the roof of your mouth arches up. So the alveolar ridge is where you need to make the contact for this type of S sound. The tip of the tongue should not be up in that ridge, but rather it should be on the flat lower part of the roof of the mouth, but right where the ridge begins. So let's do each of those and become cognizant, become aware of the point of articulation. First, we're going to do a regular S. It's like an S in English for Samich and also for Sin. Those are the only two letters in Hebrew that, at least in academically documented sources, as far as I know, they're the only two letters that there's no distinction in any preserved Hebrew tradition. All other letters have a distinction from others. So for Sin and Samich, it's a regular S like snack or snake. Take the tip of your tongue and make the S sound just behind your upper front teeth. The tongue right here. Right? Let's do that. Now to contrast, you're going to do the same thing. Curve the tip of your tongue. But if your teeth are like right here, that's your teeth, you're going to take your tongue. How can I get it? Oh, it's so difficult. Okay. I need to do a different way. Okay. Oh my goodness. It's so much easier with the diagram. Let's see. Woo!
All right. So instead of behind your teeth, move it back a half an inch.
Yes, but people are very visual. Okay.
Yeah.
If your teeth are like right here, and then this is in your mouth already, and then that ridge goes up, you want to touch right at that ridge, not up inside of it. So instead of saw, it's fall. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. You can, the T pops in a slightly right there at that point.
There should be no T sound.
There should be
Right, but-
zero T sound.
But it changes from the S to a little bit harder, I guess.
It's a different kind of
Sod.
S.
Saw.
It's a diff-
Saw.
So
saw,
instead of saw, it's saw,
saw.
and it's also pharyngeal, which
Saw.
means you should be tightening your the muscles behind your uvula. So you're gonna be slightly not closing, but that was perfect. Oh,
Saw.
yes. You slightly tighten. If you can't think of or imagine beyond your uvula, just think of slightly tensing up your tonsils. If you look in a mirror and open your mouth when nobody's looking, you should notice that you can you have your uvula as the thing dangling from the roof of your mouth, and then you have like your tonsils. You are able to move them, so open and close them. So when you make the S sound at the same time, simultaneously, you want to tighten, not close, but slightly tighten your muscles around your tonsils. And that's why the letter Saudi and also Tat, which is produced in a similar way, get interchanged with guttural letters between Semitic languages. Because even though Saudi and Tat are not guttural, but you may describe them as semi-guttural or half-guttural. So that's why words with Saudi in Hebrew sometimes become an ayin or an aleph in other Semitic languages. Even in Hebrew itself, it happens. That's why, let me think of an example. I don't want to waste too much time.
Speaking
Yeah,
of time, we are a little long.
We're a little long. Yallah.
A little long. Mhm.
As it says, Ya'arikhun yamecha. Your days shall be lengthened. Okay. So nesah means victory. Okay. It can also mean endurance. Endurance. Milah haba'a.
Milah haba'a.
Hod.
Hod.
So hod can also be translated as glory or as beauty, but it has a bit of a different connotation. It's more like something that is a praise. And this is a root word in the word for Jew in Hebrew, Yehudi. Same root, it's in the word hodaya, gratitude or thanksgiving. It is an acknowledgement of something positive. Okay, and then yesod.
What's a real common use of that? Because I'm not. It sounds like I should.
You
I
do
can
know.
hear it.
You're just not aware that you know.
Mhm.
Common usage is toda. Toda. The T in the word toda is just a conjugation of that root. Yehudi.
Oh.
Yehudi is one who gives praise because she said, Oda, I shall give praise. And we're about to say it in our closing prayer, Modeh ani. Modeh. It's another conjugation of this word. That first letter that's being added is not a fundamental part of the word. It's not part of the root. All right. And finally, Heather, Milah haba'a. Ha'ahrona, the final.
Yesod.
Beautiful. Maze Yesod. Yesod is a foundation. The Holy One, blessed be He, the God of Israel, is the foundation of all foundations, of all existence. Hence, why it is proper, and you could even use as a synonym, Adonai, for the four-letter name YHWH. Because YHWH, He is the foundation, the cause and maintainer, the immutable cause and maintainer of all existence. And Adonai is from a Hebrew root that also means foundation, Adon. And Adon is a type of foundation, socket. So the little foundation parts in the temple are called Adonim. And Adonai is literally my foundations. Right? Also my masters, my foundations, hyperbolically. And that concludes for today. Anybody have any questions real fast before we end? Feel free, our viewers, to write questions in the comments below. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. You can find us also on Telegram, on WhatsApp. And don't forget to visit the Mishnah Walk website, mishnahwalk.com.
And
Homework.com.
looks like the chats are clear of any questions, so I think we're good.
All right. In that case, בואו נמשיך. Right, here we have Hod. Here you see it right here, the Od. The Hay got swallowed up by the Mem. All right, Victor, Tur Shalcha, your turn.
מודה אני לפניך, אדוני אלוהי.
All right, Heather, Bechavod.
I am grateful before you, Adonai, our most powerful authority over me.
Beautiful.
ששמך,
Top.
ששמת,
Hel, Qi. Hel, Qi.
הלכי, מיוסווה,
Yoshve. Sometimes keep your eyes out for a shin with no dot.
Mhm.
If there's a holam before it, which is almost always going to be the case, that holam, the vowel that makes an O sound, will, in many printed editions of prayer books, will double in its function as an holam and also to indicate the right side dot of a sheen. So you can take that as a given. Miyoshve, miyoshve.
מיושבי, בית המקדש,
One more time.
מידרוש,
There
מידרש,
you go. Alright, so
המדרש.
נכון, ששמת חלקי מיושבי בית המדרש. Heather, בכבוד.
I'm drawing a blank.
That you have placed my portion.
To place my portion in the house of study.
All right, among those who dwell in the house of study.
Among-
All right, Mr. Victor, בוא נמשיך.
ולא שימת,
סתם.
שמת. I always have a problem with that.
חלקי.
חלקי, מיושבי,
Very good.
קרנות,
Very good. ולא שמת חלקי מיושבי קרנות. Heather, בכבוד.
And that you have not placed my portion on the street corners.
Among those who dwell.
Among those who
מיושבי.
dwell.
Right, from the word yeshuv or yoshev, same root as yeshiva. Of those who sit or dwell.
On corners.
נכון. Mr. Victor, בכבוד.
shani,
We need to hear every syllable. Sha'a.
shani, masha, kaim,
Mashkim.
mashkim, wahem, mashkamim,
Right, what vowel?
mashkamim,
What vowel was under the kaf?
mashkamim,
Mashkimim. Right, mashkimim. All right, Heather, tur shalach. Sha'ani mashkim wahem mashkimim.
I get up early and they get up early.
All right. We're putting it
Ani.
all on you, Victor. All on you.
That's fine.
It's good though. Your reading is certainly advancing. Baruch Hashem.
Very slowly, but it's keeps moving.
You know it is, don't you? You can feel it, right?
Well, it's amazing. I could see the areas that I should work on because it's like the same hurdle every time.
And the only way that a person can identify what they need to work more on is if they're willing to put themselves out there and see it, because we're probably not going to see it when we're just doing it by ourselves. So that's
Hmm.
not a message to Mr. Victor, everybody, but a message to everybody.
Yeah.
If our members want to learn Hebrew, it will not just magically come from praying. We're not to rely on miracles. God never promised us he's going to do a miracle and we're just magically going to speak Hebrew. It just does not happen. One time I had a charismatic Christian send me 3 long videos of him speaking ancient Hebrew through the Holy Spirit, and not a single word was Hebrew. And he was just absolutely convinced. It just is. I know God created the universe, he can do it, but he's never promised us to, so we should not assume. So we have to put ourselves out there if we're going to progress. This is the only way. And Victor and Heather are proof of it. Yalla,
Ani Mishkaim.
break it
Mish-
down. Always break it down into parts until you know the
Ani
word.
Ani Mash Keem.
Keem. Heather, yeah, Heather. How do we know whether or not the letter Yud should be pronounced only as a vowel or also as a consonant?
If it has a dagesh in it,
Good, that's one way. If there's a dagesh in it, you can know for sure it should be pronounced as a Y sound. What's
There would
another
be
one?
2 of them.
That's an indication if there's no vowels.
Mm-hmm.
If there's 2
So
in a
the
row and
dot.
there's no vowels. But
So
if
the dot.
so, either if there's a dot inside of it,
Mm-hmm.
or if there's a vowel immediately underneath or immediately above it. Meaning, if the yud either has a dot inside of it or has its own vowel, then you can know for sure that it should be pronounced as a Y. If it does not have either of those, you can know for sure it should not be pronounced as a Y, only as an E.
So here we have Mishkim,
Mashkim.
Mashkim.
Yes, sir. And we know that it's mashkim because there's no dot and no vowel on the yud.
Ani Mashkim le de divrei
Nachon. That's right, nachon.
Torah wahem mishkamim mashkamim
Mashkimim.
led
Oh, hold on. Yes,
lead varim
good.
Beislaim be blank.
It does look like it's very similar to what you read it as. So for anyone with us who's practicing Hebrew, write down this letter and then write down the letter Samech. They look very similar. When it's this letter, this is Pleth. It is the 9th letter in the Hebrew alphabet. Pleth. It makes a T sound, articulated, created in the same place that Saudi is, where the ridge of the roof of your mouth begins. So you know it's Pleth and not a Samech because there's a gap. If that gap is closed, it looks more or less the same, but just with a closed gap is Samech. So they do look very similar.
Betlim.
You had a question, Heather?
oh, I was just going to say something that helped me remember it is that it has a tail. Tet
kinda
has a
does look like-
tail.
Yeah, it does kind of look like a tail. That's right.
Dropping down in the middle, you mean? The little
Yep.
Yeah, the little curved piece on the right-hand side.
But
Looks like a
Ah.
squirrel tail or something.
it does kind of.
Betalim.
That's right. All right.
Betalim.
טור של Heather, תתרגמי בבקשה. אני משכים לדברי תורה, והם משכימים לדבורים בטלים.
I get up early to matters of Torah, and they get up early to empty matters.
All right.
Ani Amer
Very good.
Wahem Amalim.
Beautiful. Victor, that was really, really good.
I work hard and they work hard.
Excellent.
Ani Amel Wa Mik my Wa Mik no.
Ooh.
Yeah.
If it's a va with a dot in the middle and there's no other vowel above or below it, it's always ooh. Always ooh, like ooh, that's gross. Ooh. Not to be mistaken for oh. Sometimes people will mix it. So it's always ooh, even in modern Hebrew.
Umek
Silent schwa,
Kabel.
That's it. And also, Victor, I gotta hand it to you. You are consistently pronouncing the lamed perfectly. It's very easy as English speakers for us to pronounce it as all, kabel, because in English we have two types of L's, and at the end of syllables we pronounce L not as la but as all. But you're doing it consistently as is done in Hebrew. So in Hebrew, never mind hypothetical ancient ways, because maybe in ancient Hebrew we had two ways. I think that's likely, considering other Semitic languages, but we don't have any living tradition for it. So among those living traditions of Hebrew, L is always pronounced as the way that L is pronounced in English at the beginning of syllables. In Hebrew, you pronounce it even at the end of a word the way you would at the beginning of a word in English. So not umkabel or not umkabel, but umkabel. El like in the word love, and not el like in the word uncle. You guys recognize the difference, yes?
Yes.
All right. Who knew English had two?
Kabel Sakar Sahar
Yes, always make that fricative. Stakhar.
Wahem Amalim. Wa'ir? No, Wa'in?
Wa'en.
Wa'en?
En.
Balim
Very good.
Sakar.
Very good. By the way, when we see a yud with no vowel above or below it, that yud is simply a placeholder. It's not read separately. It's a placeholder symbolizing the vowel under the previous letter. So if the vowel under the previous letter is a slere, then this yud is not pronounced in addition to it. It's simply symbolizing the slere for the time period of the Hebrew language when we had not yet innovated the vowel symbols. The yud could symbolize either an e or an e sound, and that's just been carried over from that time period. All right, so it's not its own separate thing. It is the sare in that particular place. All right, Heather, tur shalach.
I work hard and receive reward, and they work hard and do not receive reward.
Yalla, tur shalach.
Ani Ratz Wahem Ratzim.
That was good for modern Hebrew. Now, where should your tongue be touching in classical Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew? Or the Saudi?
So
Yes.
a little
Saw,
farther
saw.
back.
So not Ratz, but Ross.
Ross
Saw.
Rot. Okay. So Ani Ross Wahem Ratson.
Yeah, good. I heard you starting to tighten you want to tighten your throat just a little bit as you do it. Rosim.
Rasim.
Very good. All right, Heather.
I run and they run.
Ani Ross Le Lechaye.
Beautiful. Yes. Instead of lachaye,
It's
lachaye.
amazing. I got that so well after 800 attempts.
Seek and ye shall find.
And it was probably
Hallelujah.
still accidental.
No, that was
Lake,
good. You
Le-
knew what you were doing
Lechaye.
because we just talked about sere and the dagesh and the yud and a yud with nothing above or below it. We just talked about it. That was on purpose and that was very good.
Mm.
Let's do it again. It just gives me goosebumps all over.
I don't know if I can repeat it now. Ani Ros Lakaye.
Oh, that was on purpose. What call? It hurts so bad.
See, I told you it was an accident.
That's horrible. You're so bad. That had to be on purpose too. Let's do it again. Het should never be a K sound. Never, 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 never.
Lechaye.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I can breathe. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. My it just didn't get through. That's all. Didn't break it.
I think
Didn't
that
break
was on
through.
purpose. And if not, I refuse to believe. Let's keep going.
I'm sorry. It
I'll
was
just
not
act
on
like it didn't happen. How
Okay.
dare you? How dare you?
Ha'olam.
Ha'olam. Ha'olam.
Ha'olam.
Nothing.
Haba. Ohem. Wahim.
Wahem.
Ratson.
Rahim.
Rasim. Rasim.
Yeah, sleep. Sleem. Or sleem.
Rosim.
The vowel has a slightly hollow type sound because of the influence of the pharyngeal constriction in the pronunciation of Saudi. You slightly tighten or constrict your pharyngeal muscles. I may be mispronouncing the word, but they are the muscles just behind your uvula in your throat.
Rosim.
Yes, Austin.
Leave
Both syllables. There are two syllables here.
leave air.
Nahon, mushlam, perfect, habibi, kola kavod, ya akh.
Shahat.
Accent the first syllable.
Shahat.
Shahath.
Shahat.
Yeah, and you did it perfectly for modern Hebrew. Shahath. All right, Heather, b'chavod, take it away.
I run unto the world to come, and they run
Wow.
to a pit of destruction.
Heather was just humoring you with this word. Let's do it one more time.
I run. It's not unto.
It isn't unto, but there's a word after it.
Oh, unto the life. There we go. Of the world to come, and they run to a pit of destruction.
So yeah, and you're gonna finish us off with a word of prayer for a safe and meaningful new week. And please also, if you don't mind, pray for all people everywhere, and especially some of our good friends and family in parts of India, that God protect them and comfort them and give them assurance that these terrors from excuses of monotheists, these people who blaspheme God's name by murdering innocent people in the name of Allah, that God spare the innocent among them, and that the government of India act speedily to crush the wicked in their vicinity, and all nations take up the responsibility to destroy murderers of innocent people. And so I have some close family who live there, suffering all the last week and a half from this stuff, raining rockets on them, not just in Israel, but the Jewish people are suffering all over the world from the unrighteous who blaspheme the name of God by doing horrible things in the name of religion. Yeah, and I expect you to pray that word for word. Don't miss a beat. I'm just picking. All right, b'chavod.
We are grateful before you, Adonai, our powerful authority, for this time that we were able to come together and to study your word, and learn how to honor our parents and our teachers without fear of any sort of persecution or reasons to fear for our lives, like some of our friends and family around the world, specifically our friends in India. We pray that you would give them courage to be brave in the face of danger, and that the government of India would step in swiftly and eliminate the problem both now and any future problem that might arise. Amen.
Amen. That was beautiful. Wow, so eloquent. Would you happen to be interested in working for the Mishnah Walk? I hear they have very high pay. Victor, don't hit me. Have you
Yeah,
ever thought?
I've considered it.
We need to get her one of those
think-
backgrounds with the purple and everything.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
think she'd
Oh,
be a very
yeah.
talented graphic designer and marketer. Just thought. L'chaim.
L'chaim. L'chaim. Thank you both for making Mishnah Walk great every week.
And most certainly you too, good sir. Hashem yivarech otcha. God bless you. We'll see you guys this time next week, Be'ezrat Shaddai, with the help of the Most High, on the Mishnah Walk. Please send your comments and questions to the Mishnah Walk in the YouTube video, in the Facebook, or wherever we're found, WhatsApp and Telegram.